Chapter 590. Boom! Boom! The cannons roared. The Baku troops moved out from various garrisons in Victoria City. They quickly rushed towards the most intense frontline area where the Zaft MS suffered the most losses. On the left and right of the Baku troops, there were figures of Xeon supporting the flanks on both sides. In the sky, because the thunderstorm in the dark clouds had begun to weaken, Zaft's trump card, Dean, also took off to occupy the sky as quickly as possible. Are the losses too great? What kind of monster is that beast-type Mecha? In the control center of Davila Airport, a Zaft commander clenched his fists tightly. It had only been half an hour since the Earth Alliance launched their attack under the heavy rain. The frontline battle situation was overwhelming, causing Zaft, who was stationed at Victoria Airport, to suffer a great loss. The culprit behind this situation was not because the Earth Alliance had invested a huge number of troops. Instead, it was because of two new mecha that had never been seen before, possibly developed by the Earth Alliance. Is it the latest mecha developed by our Baku? What's going on with that defense? From the real-time battle images sent back from the front line, the Annihilation team, formed by 3 Xeon and 2 electromagnetic cannon Baku, had successfully hit the beast-type mecha more than once. However, when facing the Earth Alliance's sharp attacks, which were like chopping melons and vegetables, they were unable to penetrate or even break the armor on the opponent's body. What made Commander Zaft feel even more incredulous was that, after the smoke from the explosion dissipated, the armor on the beast-type mecha was still spotlessly white and flawless, as smooth as new. How is this possible? The real-time images of the front line showed how terrifying the enemy looked. The Steel Lion, which had never been heard of or seen before, was actually so powerful in the face of Zaft's pride and the MS that had once suppressed the Earth Alliance in this war. Report. The flanks of the Earth Alliance army have begun to attack. In addition, according to the reports from the front line, the Earth Alliance seems to have used a new type of MS that we have never heard of. What? Commander Zaft clenched his teeth tightly. Could it be that the pure white Steel Lion and the low-key black MS that followed behind it were not all the trump cards of the Earth Alliance? Damn it! We can't let the Earth Alliance take back Victoria Airport. Send out a request for backup. Yes. Above the void. Above the churning black sea of clouds. A huge fleet gathered by Zaft was quietly waiting above the synchronous orbit, waiting for an order. All of a sudden, bundles of flames lit up one after another. The Zaft fleet, which gradually increased the output of the propulsion engine to the maximum, began to accelerate and descend, setting off towards the planned orbital airborne coordinates. This was a battle of support from the heavens. In the flagship of this fleet, Kreutzer, who had changed into a pilot's suit, stood in the middle of Naku and looked at the teenagers standing in front of him. I believe all of you have already understood the battle plan. Well, I'm going to split up now. Aslan and Ally can go with me, while Isaac, Diego and Nigori are the second team. The team I am in charge of will act as a distraction force, land in Panama, and pretend to attack the Earth United military base in Panama. The second team will be led by Isaac. Your mission is to support the garrison of Victoria Airport and do your best to repel the Earth Alliance. If the situation is unfavorable, you must cooperate with the local garrison. Understand? Yes. Captain Kreutzer, Aslan, Zack and the others had no objections. This battle plan had been sent to their personal hands when the Zaft airborne fleet was assembled. However, what surprised them was Kreutzer's manpower allocation plan. Aslan, you're really a lucky guy. While there was still some time before the orbital airborne began, Diego grabbed Aslan and teased him. Diego, stop. This is just Captain Kreutzer's arrangement. Aslan naturally understood what Diego meant, but he didn't know what to say for a while. Since the military academy, Aslan had acted with Nigori, Zack and Diego. Now Kreutzer's arrangement made Aslan somewhat at a loss. Diego, You don't have to worry about Aslan. With Captain Kreutzer, Aslan will be fine no matter how stupid he is. Compared to Diego, why Zack's attitude was somewhat cold. All right. Time is almost up. Let's go. Aslan, I'll see you later. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little stiff, Nagori immediately smoothed things over and tried to separate everyone. Well, see you later. Nagori. For some reason, Aslan couldn't help but panic as he looked at Neger, who had pushed Yitzhak and Diego away. But Aslan didn't catch a trace of panic. He just looked at Nagori's figure disappearing outside the door, moved the corner of his mouth, but couldn't say anything. Kacha. Lightning flashed through the dark clouds, and thunder rumbled through the earth. The pure white steel lion raised its head slightly and looked at the sky that was gradually calming down. Buzz. The heretical golden machine shot out beams of light, forcing a Xeon team to retreat and stand beside the long-toothed lion, State 0. What happened? Lund-Sahak quickly glanced at the dark clouds that were still thick in the sky. The enemy's support is here. Before the war, what Ray Minkai was worried about finally happened. State 0 noticed the abnormality in the sky above Victoria Airport. Zaf's airborne troops had begun to move out. The sky? Lund-Sahak suddenly realized what was going on. Is it an orbital airborne? Yes. Mina, let's go back. We're no longer needed here. The long-toothed lion, State 0, immediately turned around and accelerated back to the area where the land mothership Bonaparte was located. Its speed was so fast that the slow reaction of the heretical golden machine almost couldn't catch up. The battle was still fierce. Even the departure of the long-toothed lion and the heretical golden machine would not affect the situation of the Earth Alliance suppressing the Victoria Airport's Zaft army in a short period of time. The only thing that could make a major impact on the reversal of the battle situation was perhaps the Zaf's armored forces that were rapidly descending from the ninth heaven to the land that was ignited by the flames of war. The sunlight scattered. The dark clouds brought by the torrential rain that had turned the land and the grassland into a muddy mess were inadvertently broken through, allowing the bright and warm sunlight to pass through the dark clouds and scatter on the land again. That's Zaf's airborne troops. Quick! Level 1 air defense alert. Quick! The Earth Alliance general standing next to Mutta Yazi Lars saw the black spots that appeared in the scattered sunlight. He suddenly remembered the scene where Zaft used the orbital airborne technology to beat up the Earth Alliance, who couldn't react in time. Sure enough, let those three guys attack. Mutta Yazi Lars bit his thumb and immediately gave an order. Report. 2 of our MS class left the front line and are rapidly returning here. Deserters? Who is it? The general was stunned and asked subconsciously. It's the lion and the heretical golden machine. After a pause, the CIC continued. Now we have received a message from the lion. It said that Zaf's orbital airborne has begun and they are requesting support. Nonsense. Their mission is... Before the general finished speaking, Mutta Yazi Lars stopped him. No, don't be so agitated. General, our friends are so worried about our safety. This is a good thing, isn't it? Mutta Yazi Lars smiled slightly and looked at the general. Since that's the case, let our friends and those 3 guys act together. Let those 3 naughty guys see what a real trump card is. The performance of the tusked lion and the heretical golden machine had already made Mutta Yazi Lars want to recruit them. It's just that they weren't as easy to control as those 3 guys. Da-da-da-da. Whoosh! Whoosh! Facing the breaking dark clouds, the rapidly descending figures under the scattered sunlight increased. The Earth Alliance's frontline command also set up anti-aircraft cannons and anti-aircraft missiles to form a huge and dense anti-aircraft firepower net above the position. Although under the influence of the neutron disruptor, the anti-aircraft missile's lock-on performance was far worse than before, it could still form a powerful anti-aircraft firepower net together with the anti-aircraft cannons under the preset distance and height. Boom! Boom! The thunder of nature quietly went away. But the thunder created by humans followed closely. Zeon, who was torn apart by the anti-aircraft artillery barrage, Zeon, who was hit by the anti-aircraft missile, became the protagonist of the battlefield at this moment. Zaf's airborne troops are here. Looking from afar, Lund-Mina Sahak had already seen the first wave of airborne troops rushing into the Earth Alliance's frontline command, which was the area where the large land mothership Bonaparte was located. Yes, Mina, split up. Also, be careful of the Earth Alliance's new MS. What? Be careful of the Earth Alliance's new MS? Obviously, Lund-Mina Sahak didn't understand Ray Minkai's meaning for a while. But the tusked lion had already turned around and rushed towards the other side of the position. Kai. Target found. It's those guys. Well, I saw it. Dual Gouda, Storm Gouda, and Thunderbolt Gouda all appeared in the sky above this battlefield. Unexpectedly, now that the Archangel landed in Alaska ahead of time, the trajectory of the three Gouda's movements also changed. Originally, in this battle for the Victoria Airport, Dual, Storm, and Thunderbolt did not participate in the three Gouda's battle. It's really a pity. Yitzhak, Diego, Nigal. The pure white tusked lion rushed forward and went straight to the area where the three Goudas were about to land. Diego, Nigal, be careful. This is our first time participating in an orbital airborne battle. Don't mess it up. As the new captain of the team, Yitzhak was full of energy, vowing to make a good name for himself and let Aslan see the color of Eden. Understood. Even if Yitzhak said so, Diego and Nigal couldn't help but feel strained when facing such a dense anti-aircraft barrage for the first time. Furthermore, just as the three Gundams had descended to less than a kilometer in altitude, an even more ferocious wave of cannon fire followed closely behind, forcing the three Gundams to preemptively move and do their best to avoid the cannon fire from below. Fortunately, because the three Goudas were equipped with PS armor, the live ammunition attack they suffered did not drag the three Goudas into the same ending as the surrounding Zeon. This is the orbital airborne battle? Zeon, who was constantly blown up by the anti-aircraft barrage, shocked the teenagers. Don't be in a daze. Gather. Let's show the natural some color. As soon as Yitzhak shouted this sentence, he suddenly found that the screen in front of him turned black. Boom. Dual Goudas was knocked out in an instant. Damn it. Who is it? The violent impact made Yitzhak dizzy, but what made him even angrier was that he, who boasted that he was better than others, was actually sneak attacked by the natural person. Yitzhak, be careful. That seems to be the new Earth United airframe. Lion? Pure white lion. Diego and Nichols' surprised voices sounded one after another. Lion? What lion? Those messy animals have long been. Yitzhak shook his head and looked at the screen, but he was shocked by the body on the screen. Big. What a big lion, a pure white body, cold light flowed, slender golden pupils, sharp and terrifying golden claws, and that huge body were all impacting Yitzhak's worldview. Bah. Ku? Da-da-da. Buzz. The movement made by Storm Gouda and Thunderbolt Gouda's attacks woke Yitzhak up. Yitzhak, stop being in a daze. This big lion won't let us go. Storm Gouda, who was controlled by Diego, retreated continuously, trying to distance himself as much as possible under the cover of Thunderbolt Gouda, trying to use his own firepower advantage to kill the steel lion that suddenly appeared in front of him. Not good. Diego. That lion's speed is too fast. Get out of the way. Although the beam rifle in Thunderbolt Gouda's hand was powerful, it could not catch up with the pure white lion's movements. TSK. Seeing this, Diego could only drive Storm Gouda back again. Get out of the way. At this moment, a blazing light flashed past Storm Gouda's eyes and went straight to the pure white lion's face. As the soil splashed, the pure white lion only jumped to the left and avoided the blazing light. Diego. Step back. Dual Gauda stood in front of the pure white lion. Chapter 591. Yitzhak. Shut up. Hide in the back and support me like nigger. Let me take care of this weird lion. Yitzhak's eyes were fixed on the tusked lion. Diego opened his mouth and obediently followed what Yitzhak said. When he was trained in the military academy, he retreated to the middle and rear with Nigger, who was driving Thunderbolt Gauda, ready to provide cover for Dual Gauda's attack. This posture made Ray Minkai smile slightly. It's still the same. I've seen this formation more than once. Yitzhak was the main force, and Diego and Nigger were the auxiliary force. One attacked head-on, two were wandering, waiting for the opportunity to launch a surprise attack, or occupying a favorable position to provide firepower cover for the partner who attacked head-on. Well, this was a classic offensive formation, but for Ray Minkai, it was a formation that had been destroyed countless times. Yitzhak's plan was good. However, there was a fatal flaw in this formation. Sorry, Nigger. The plasma thruster on the back of the pure white tusked lion roared, and the tusked lion that was stopped by Dual Gauda disappeared in the blink of an eye. From one side to the rear, it went straight to Storm Gauda and Thunderbolt Gauda, who had just completed the offensive formation. Don't underestimate people, lion. Yitzhak used the tusked lion to avoid his duel. Gauda rushed to Storm Gauda and Thunderbolt Gauda, and suddenly became angry. Buzz! Buzz! Dual Gauda's 57mm high-energy beam rifle seemed to be able to feel the anger in its pilot's heart, and fired a sharp beam attack. Da-da-da-da! The Dual Gundam's attack wasn't as simple as the 57mm high-energy beam rifle's beam. While it chased after the teethed Lion Zero, it also activated the 75mm Vulcan cannon on its head. The 75mm Vulcan cannon's barrage was not to hurt the tusked lion, but to limit its range of movement, so that the 57mm beam rifle in Dual Gauda's hand could be fatal. However, the speed of the tusked Lion Zero was too fast at this moment. It was so fast that even Dual Gauda's 75mm Vulcan cannon could not catch up with its figure, and could only fall behind in vain, creating a pit on the ground. As the core attack of this chase, the 57mm beam rifle's performance made Yitzhak even more furious. Hit him! Hit him! Hit him! Hit him! What kind of monster is this lion? Too fast! Too fast! Every time Dual Gauda moved the muzzle under Yitzhak's control to predict the next move of the tusked lion, he always found that the tusked lion either ran faster, or as if it saw through Dual Gauda's prediction in advance, it avoided Dual Gauda's muzzle first. The chase didn't last too long. In just a short span of 2 or 3 breaths, the tusked lion had left Dual Gauda far behind, and rushed to the front of Storm Gauda and Thunderbolt Gauda. Diego, get out of the way! Like Yitzhak, when he saw the tusked lion rushing to the front, Neger also made the same choice. Hey! Neger, hold on! Diego, who was forced back by the tusked lion twice in a row, was unwilling. This time, he didn't just run away. Instead, he chose to jump with all his might on the Storm Gundam. While jumping high into the air, the Storm Gundam's 2 hands moved and clasped together. The combination of a 350mm anti-armor shotgun launcher and a 94mm high-energy retractable rifle was in his hand. Stop for me! This strike was the rage in Diego's heart that he was unwilling to accept. As long as the tusked lion was forced to stop, with the strength of the 3 of them, they would be able to deal with the tusked lion. Diego thought so. But, as he said before, Yitzhak, Diego, Neger's formation was already familiar to Ray Minkai. Or rather, at this moment, Diego's performance was already within Ray Minkai's expectations. So, when Storm Gauda showed one of his trump cards, using a shotgun on an armored target, the tusked lion's zero movement paused. His right body lowered, and his left front leg and left hind leg exerted force together. At the moment when Storm Gauda fired, he jumped to the right side simultaneously, and Storm Gauda's sure-hit attack missed. What? Storm Gauda crashed to the ground, but Diego's face was difficult to execute. Roar. The tusked lion's zero roar sounded again. This roar, in Diego's eyes, was a burst of ridicule. Laughing at his incompetence, also laughing at his weakness. It's just a beast. Storm Gauda separated his hands, and the shotgun that was combined into a pair of armored targets was immediately restored, and in the next second, it locked onto the tusked lion's zero, firing out a hurricane-like barrage, trying to drown the tusked lion's zero. Diego. Among the three of them, Neger was the only one who had not been provoked by the tusked lion's zero. Therefore, under the anger of Yitzhak and Diego, Neger's calmness might be the key to stabilizing the situation in front of him. Roar. The roar of the steel behemoth was still loud. Even if Storm Gauda's attack was enough to drown the area in front of him. Amidst the roaring artillery fire, amidst the deadly brilliance of the beam of light, the tusked lion's zero was like a ghost wantonly shuttling through the artillery fire, causing Storm Gauda's proud, powerful firepower offensive to become a joke. Buzz. Buzz! Suddenly, two beams of light crossed the sky and hit the ground beneath the tusked lion's 0 feet. Amidst the dust that was blown up by the high-energy beam, the long-fanged lion's figure changed. Once again, it nimbly disappeared from the Gundam and the Thunderbolt Gundam's sight. Diego Neger. Keep the formation! Dual Gauda, who was left far behind by the tusked lion's zero, finally caught up. Roar. Yitzhak. Be careful! The moment Dual Gauda appeared in front of Diego and Neger, the two immediately issued an alarm. Yitzhak was shocked, but he instinctively made Dual Gauda bend down. Boom! As the terrifying sound of metal clashing rang out, a black silhouette flew out from the Gundam's body. It tumbled through the air in an arc before crashing heavily onto the grassland, tearing open a ghastly wound on the grassland. Boom! The 350mm anti-armor shotgun attack followed. The steel behemoth that appeared behind Dual Gauda was forced to retreat. Yitzhak, are you okay? Thunderbolt Gauda quickly stepped forward, blocking in front of Dual Gauda. No, I'm fine. It's just that the head monitor was knocked off. Dual Gauda was ambushed by the tusked lion's zero. Although he avoided the vital parts, his head monitor was still sent flying by the tusked lion's zero. Hey, Kai. If you hold back like this, these three guys will probably continue to entangle with you. You don't care about the turtle mothership? State Zero seemed to be puzzled. No. There's no need to worry too much about the Bonaparte. As long as we stop Yitzhak and the other enemies will be dealt with by the hidden cards of Mina and Lars Muerta Yazzie. Raymond-Kai's confidence made State Zero curl his lips, but he did not say anything. The tusked lion's zero took a step forward, and slowly walked around Gauda and Storm Gauda, who were protecting Dual Gauda, like a hunter watching the final struggle of his prey. The formation of Yitzhak, Diego, and Nigori had been broken. Although the flaw was not on Nigori, but unexpectedly on Yitzhak, the result was not bad. Hey, what is that lion doing? A trace of cold sweat appeared on Diego's forehead. Even though the dueling Gundam had lost its head monitor, it could still use other auxiliary monitors to clearly see the situation around it. However, its combat power had already been greatly reduced. In this case, the strange lion seemed to be hiding even more terrifying strength. How could this not worry Diego? Suddenly, Thunderbolt Gauda took a step forward, and his speed became faster and faster. Under the surprised gazes of Yitzhak and Diego, he raised the shield system on his right wrist. Whoosh! 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 The triple-headed armor-piercing bullets in the shield system were fired continuously. Coming! A golden light flashed in the eyes of the tusked lion, and he nimbly jumped left and right, easily dodging the triple-headed armor-piercing bullets fired by Thunderbolt Gouda. The black shadow appeared in front of the tusked lion's zero like a shadow. The dark muzzle pointed straight at the forehead of the tusked lion's zero. Buzz. The moment the particles rushed out of the muzzle, the roar it set off shook the sky above the battlefield, and it also shook the consciousness of Yitzhak and Diego. Thunderbolt Gouda's back was pierced through by a beam of light. Judging from the wound on his back, the place where it was pierced was the cockpit. No. Nigori. Yitzhak's eyes were red, and he was almost crazy. He didn't expect Nigori to be killed in front of him in such a ridiculous way. Dual Gouda's figure swayed, and he took a step forward crazily, rushing towards the slowly falling Thunderbolt Gouda. Be careful. Yitzhak. Boom. The roar of Storm Gouda's 94mm high-energy retractable fire rifle swept past the front of Dual Gouda, causing Dual Gouda's forward charge to slow down for half a minute, and it also calmed down Yitzhak's anger a little. When Yitzhak was about to curse, he saw a terrifying steel head appear in front of him. Lion. It's the pure white lion. Unknowingly, there was a beam sword in the mouth of the tusked lion. And this beam sword was the culprit that caused Nigori to die in such a ridiculous way. The steel lion shook its head slightly, and the beam sword that pierced through Thunderbolt Gouda was immediately discarded. After falling to the ground and rolling several times, it slowly stopped at the feet of Dual Gouda. This is ridicule. This is ridicule to Yitzhak. Chapter 592. The beam sword that lost its energy source slowly spun in front of Dual Gouda's feet. Yitzhak's face was dull and angry. You actually dare to kill Nigger. Yitzhak, who witnessed the death of his friend, was instantly dominated by anger. Especially when Long Fong Lion threw the beam sword that pierced through Gouda's feet, the anger of hatred was even more intense. Die! Go to hell! Dual Gouda, who lost the head monitor, did not hinder Yitzhak's anger at this time, nor did it hinder his perception of the surrounding situation. Instead, in a situation of extreme anger, Yitzhak's thinking seemed to be accelerated by some unknown force. Fast and sharp, the beams from the Gundam's beam rifle seemed to have grown eyes as they stared at the tusked Lion Zero. There were even a few times where they almost hit the tusked Lion Zero. Hey, Kai. Aren't you joking a little too much? Why is that white-haired boy crazy? Looking at Gouda, who transformed into a berserker in Duel, State Zero's eyelids twitched wildly, and he could not help but complain a few words. How would I know? Ray Minkai also had a headache. Logically speaking, Neger's death should not have caused much excitement to Yitzhak. From the beginning to the end, Yitzhak could not stand Nigger's cowardice. He only thought that the reason why Nigger joined the army was only because of the influence of his surrounding and family, and not his own will. Therefore, in Yitzhak's eyes, Nigger was almost equivalent to the existence of a coward. How could a person who had seen Nigori so clearly become so angry after witnessing Nigori's death in battle? Shouldn't Aslan be the one to act out this scene? That being said, Ray Minkai did not have the idea of retreating because of this. Roar! Long Fong Lion Zero faced Dual Gouda's Mad Dog attack without flinching after roaring and facing it head-on. Since you're like a mad dog, then I'll be even crazier than you. The pair of laser claws of the Long Fong Lion Zero style waved like the wind, swatting away all of Gouda's fists and kicked. Boom! Boom! In the duel, Gouda's crazy punches and kicks were constantly smashing into the Long Fong Lion, but it didn't hurt it at all. Seeing this, Dueling Gouda suddenly took a few steps back and raised the beam rifle in his hand. However, in the next second, he was blasted back by a series of explosions. The beam rifle in Gouda's hands had suddenly exploded a second ago. Not only did it fail to hit its target, it even blasted its master back. And the culprit behind this scene was the two cannons below the tusked lion's neck. With regards to Gao Da's duel, no, it should be said that Ray Minkai was extremely wary of all beam weapons that were hostile to him. With the integrated Lambda drive system, the Tusked Lion Zero style was not afraid of being attacked by any live ammunition weapons. However, with regards to beam weapons, the Tusked Lion Zero style's core energy had not recovered much, so it was somewhat weak. Dueling Gouda was forced back by the explosion of the beam rifle, but it didn't let Ray Minkai let down his guard. Storm Gouda was still not far away. The Tusked Lion Zero style's four legs kicked, and once again rushed towards Dueling Gouda like a cannonball. The brilliance of the laser claws followed the Tusked Lion Zero style's leap, outlining two deadly rays of light in midair, and went straight to Dueling Gouda's chest. As long as it hit Dueling Gouda, then Dueling Gouda's fate would inevitably be the same as the previous Zeon who died under the Tusked Lion Zero style's claws. His chest would be shattered, and his cockpit would be shattered into pieces. Boom! A rain of bullets came. Sure enough, it stormed Gouda again. Storm Gouda's 350mm anti-armor shotgun once again showed its power, and a large number of anti-armor bullets were fired towards the Tusked Lion Zero style's direction. However, it was blocked by an imperceptible wall of light. That's right. This was the power of the Lambda drive system integrated by the Tusked Lion Zero style. How is this possible? How can it not cause any damage to this lion at such a close distance? Diego, who was holding a killing blow, could not help but be stunned for a moment. He could not imagine that Storm Gouda's 350mm anti-armor shotgun was unable to kill or even injure the enemy at a distance of less than 300 meters. Roar! The roar of the steel beast swept over. A huge black shadow enveloped Storm Gouda. Diego, be careful! Zach's anxious reminder rang in Diego's ears. However, Storm Gouda's movements were a beat slower. Schwa! The thick, no, as long as it was activated, the PS armor, which was equivalent to being immune to live ammunition attacks, was destroyed by the Tusked Lion Zero style's laser claws like paper. In the next second, the 94mm high-energy fire rifle that posed a great threat to the Tusked Lion Zero style crashed to the ground, accompanied by the Tusked Lion Zero style's left arm that was torn off from Storm Gouda's body, splashing a huge cloud of dust. At this moment, the dual Gouda, Storm Gouda's armor had been almost removed by the Tusked Lion Zero style. Damn it! Diego! Use up the last ammunition. Let's withdraw. He was unwilling to accept it. But so what? If he continued to entangle with this lion, it would not only be Nigger who would die. Zach, who angrily launched an attack on the Tusked Lion Zero style, but to no avail, finally recognized the reality. But Diego, who was trying to continue to distance himself and look for an opportunity to counterattack, was slapped hard in the face by the Tusked Lion Zero style. Bang! The terrible laser claw rushed like thunder, fiercely slapping Storm Gouda's right shoulder. If it were not for Diego's quick reaction, I'm afraid that the current Storm Gouda would have turned from a one-armed man to a disabled body with both arms broken. Zach? Storm Gouda's right arm can't move. I'll cover you. Let's go. Zach gritted his teeth, and suddenly saw Thunderbolt Gouda not far away. Next to him was a 50mm beam rifle used by Thunderbolt Gouda. So, without thinking, Zach drove Thunderbolt Gouda and rolled on the ground, landing right next to the 50mm beam rifle. Diego! Let's go! Zach shouted, and then aimed at the Tusked Lion Zero style that was chasing Storm Gouda. This is Nigger's share. Go to hell. Buzz. In the blink of an eye, the beam of light broke through the void and went straight to the right side of the Tusked Lion Zero style's body. Boom. At this moment, the world seemed to be stagnant. Zach and Diego saw with their own eyes that the beam of light really hit the right side of the Tusked Lion Zero style's body, and also set off an explosion. Let's go. There was no hesitation. At the moment of the explosion, Zach and Diego retreated at the same time, using all their strength to squeeze the remaining energy of the landline, desperately pushing the backpack to the highest output, in order to escape from this battlefield in the shortest time possible. Kill the enemy? What a joke! Whether it was Zach or Diego, they didn't feel lucky to kill the enemy at all. Instead, the emptiness between life and death, and panic constantly dragged them into the abyss like a tide. As long as they took a wrong step, they would have to face only death. Nigger! Zach clenched his teeth tightly, and he didn't notice the blood gradually flowing from the corner of his mouth. The corner of Diego's mouth moved, and he finally shook his head, sighed, and said nothing more. Duel quickly escaped. Behind the two storms Gouda, a pure white steel beast quietly walked out of the thick smoke of the explosion and came to the side of Thunderbolt Gouda. Those two brats sure run fast. I almost overturned the car. State Zero glanced at the duel and Storms Gouda, who had become two small black dots, and said indignantly, "It's good that you're fine." Ray Minkai reached out and pressed a few buttons on the keyboard next to him. The pair of slender eyes of the tusked Lion Zero style suddenly flashed quickly and with some kind of rhythm. A few minutes later, a group of 6 people quietly appeared from not far away. When they saw the pure white tusked Lion Zero style, the 6 people were stunned at first, and then quickly woke up. "I'll leave this to you. If he's still alive, take him back. In addition, it doesn't matter if you leave this body here. After all, in this way, it will be more convenient for you to move." These were the people around the ring of Midgard. They were the people arranged by Jormungand before Ray Minkai came to Victoria Airport, in order to be able to provide assistance when Ray Minkai acted. Now, it was the right time to use this hidden move. The leader nodded his head silently. Thumbs up. The moment Ray Minkai made the arrangements, the members around the ring of Midgard, who climbed up Thunderbolt Gouda's cockpit first to check the situation, raised their thumbs up high. "Nigger, I hope we can meet in Scandinavia." Nigger was not killed by Ray Minkai. The scene of Thunderbolt Gouda's cockpit being pierced by Zach and Diego was just a trick played by Ray Minkai and State Zero. In fact, only the right edge of Thunderbolt Gouda's cockpit was melted. If Nigger's luck was good enough, he would only be injured and unconscious. Behind the back view of the pure white giant lion was the busy scene of moving a nameless corpse that was found from the battlefield into the cockpit of the Thunderbolt Gundam, and replacing the unconscious young man inside. Soon after, the pure white giant lion, who had walked a distance away, heard the sound of an explosion. "Those guys are so fast." State Zero turned around and looked at the smoke dissipating in the wind. Thunderbolt Gouda's cockpit had been blown up, along with the nameless corpse placed inside. After all, it's that woman's subordinate. The reunion with Yitzhak, Diego, and Neger was over, and all that was left was to seize the Victoria Airport. Of course, this was just a result that was bound to happen. Chapter 593. In fact, when Ray Minkai returned to the main battlefield, the situation here was already overwhelming. It was the Earth United that was suppressing ZAF. Regardless of whether ZAF's garrison at Victoria Airport received reinforcements from the orbital airborne, the situation of being suppressed did not change. Because, after the Long Fong Lion Zero and the Golden Heresy left the front line, the Earth United's hidden trump card in the large land carrier Bonaparte was also revealed. The new mass-produced MS Assault Dagger, as well as the 3 new Gouda, Forbidden, Snatch, and Calamity. Under the leadership of these 3 new Gouda, the first appearance of the Earth United's mass-produced MS shocked Saft, who was full of confidence and wanted to rely on the orbital airborne tactic to make a comeback. In the panic, because of the powerful performance of the Forbidden, Snatch, and Calamity Gouda, the situation of the battlefield was instantly reversed. ZAF's defensive line around Victoria Airport collapsed on the spot, and the defenders were beaten until they were dizzy, unable to organize an effective defensive line to block the sharp arrows formed by the 3 Gouda and the assault daggers. In front of them was the Golden Heresy. It seemed that it had been standing there for a while. Mina, are you done? The long Fong Lion Zero came to the side of the Golden Heresy and raised its head slightly, looking at the defensive line that was being destroyed by the 3 Gouda. Yes. This is the end of my mission. The Earth United's show of strength this time is really shocking. Lund Mina Sahak's hands had already let go of the control stick, supporting his chin, watching every movement at the front line. Indeed. However, under the current offensive, there was at least a major threat hidden in the darkness of Victoria Airport. Probably, we don't need to worry. Kai. The Earth United has already sent people at the beginning. Lund Mina Sahak slowly retracted his gaze. Following Lund Mina Sahak's narration, Lei Mingkai recalled the details of the Third Battle of Victoria Airport. When the Zaft garrison was on the brink of destruction, they had the intention to completely blow up Victoria Airport, leaving no room for the Earth Alliance. However, on the eve of the explosion, they were stopped by the Earth Alliance Special Forces who arrived in time. Now, it seemed that this offensive and defensive battle, which had already changed the course of events, was about to come to a predestined conclusion. Your Excellencies, we received a call from the front line. Our special forces have seized control of Victoria Airport. The General would like to invite the two of you over. The invitation had arrived. Now that the battle situation was clear, the Earth Alliance generals, who felt that victory was in their hands, began to act. Good. I got it. Lei Mingkai casually roared in response before switching to the private channel with the golden machine of the heretics. Mina, what do you think? Aubrey, it's dangerous. Originally, the Sahak family's purpose of getting involved in this mess was to protect Aubrey from being targeted by the Earth Alliance who had lost Victoria Airport. But now, after seeing the Earth Alliance's new MS with his own eyes, Lund Mina Sahak realized that he had greatly underestimated the Earth Alliance's intentions. Yes, Aubrey, it's dangerous. Ray Mingkai sighed. The Battle of Victoria Airport had begun and ended at least 1.5 months in advance. The Earth Alliance's next focus was to provide support to the universe. Then, while eliminating the threat on Earth, they would accumulate power and achieve a decisive victory in space. Therefore, the more mass accelerators he had, the more advantages he would have in accumulating power. I'll go back first. I'll leave the Earth Alliance to you. Lund Mina Sahak, who had always been concerned about Aubrey, could no longer sit still. Go. I'll explain it to you. Ray Mingkai and Lund Mina Sahak had completed their mission. What happened next was nothing more than watching the Earth Alliance show off their prowess. At this point, Lund Mina Sahak was no longer in the mood to watch the monkey show. The night in the Arctic Circle was beautiful. The aurora that spread across the sky was like a swimming dragon wantonly swimming in the sky. During this period, the flickering fluorescent light and the flowing radiance like a river made the humans standing below, standing in the extreme north, unable to control themselves and were unable to extricate themselves from it for a long time. On an exquisite wooden house built by skilled craftsmen with raw wood as the raw material, a little girl wrapped in a thick warm coat with a strand of pink hair exposed from the hood was looking up at the sky without moving at all. She was looking at the flickering aurora that wantonly stretched out in the sky. Clea, it's cold outside. Come back quickly. The sound of a wooden door being pushed open came from behind. Along with the sound of stepping on snow, a young girl, who had a similar face to the little girl and the same pink hair color as the little girl, came to the little girl's side and spoke softly, her hands gently tidying the little girl's clothes to prevent the little girl from catching a cold. Aurora, the little girl's gaze moved slightly, glancing at the face that was very similar to hers, then raised her head to look at the aurora in the sky. That's right. That's the aurora. It's very beautiful, isn't it? The young girl smiled lightly, then stood together with the little girl, looking at the drifting, dreamy aurora. After a long time, the little girl's gaze once again slowly retracted, looking at the young girl beside her silently. The young girl suddenly noticed the little girl's gaze, then squatted down, looking into the little girl's eyes, and smiled slightly. "What's wrong, Clea? Do you feel cold? Then, let's go back? Okay?" "Brother, brother." The little girl softly called a certain name. "Kai?" The young girl's gaze changed, but she moved her gaze and looked towards the south. Kai went to a place very far away to do something. It might take some time for him to come back. As she spoke, the young girl said again, "If Kai comes back and sees that Clea has a cold, is sick, and can only lie on the bed, he might be angry. Perhaps she was afraid of getting sick. Or perhaps she was afraid of Kai being angry." The little girl Clea turned around and walked quickly to the wooden door, pushed the wooden door open with great effort, and returned to the warm wooden house by herself, leaving the young girl looking towards the south silently. This was the first time since the Silver Wind incident that the two of them were so far apart. One was in the extreme north, accompanying his clone. The other was in the distant southern hemisphere, fighting for the two of them to be able to return to the universe smoothly. Fighting. Lei Mingkai was indeed fighting hard right now. However, the opponent he was fighting was not the enemy, but the Earth Alliance army that was still in the state of being an ally. No. To be precise, it should be fighting with 3 lunatics. Lunatics. They were indeed lunatics. Although Rei Mingkai had previously warned Lundmina Sahak to be careful of the new MS of the Earth Alliance, he did not expect that this warning would be applied to him. It was forbidden. After the Special Forces of the Earth Alliance completed the key mission of controlling the Victoria Airport, the pursuit force formed by the Assault Dagger and the Armored Forces was enough to complete the mission of pursuing the defeated Zaft army. Therefore, the 3 Gauda Mechs, as the main attackers, were naturally recalled. This was where the problem lay. Shunny Andrus, who was piloting the forbidden Gauda, was originally following the instructions and obediently returning to the mothership Bonaparte. Unexpectedly, he saw a pure white giant lion slowly walking back from the front line. In an instant, the first generation of the Earth Alliance army, including Shunny Andrus, expressed interest in the pure white giant lion on the spot. Hey, Shunny. What kind of mech is that? MS. Ma. Or is it a new MS that can transform into a human form? Krot Buell, who was piloting the transformed mech to capture the Gauda, seemed to be more interested than the other two. Idiot. Didn't Lars Yazzie say? This lion was the foreign aid they had invited. Moreover, it seems to have been modified from Baku. How can it have the ability to transform? Olga Sabruk, who was piloting the Calamity Gauda, mocked Krot's idiotic thoughts. Shut up, Olga. Come down if you have the guts. Don't sit on the back of my robber Gauda. Krot, who was mocked by Olga, was instantly unhappy. Moreover, his hands began to move. He piloted the robber Gauda and made all kinds of large movements, trying to throw the Calamity Gauda off the back of the robber Gauda. Hey, Krot, are you crazy? I was just casually saying it. Casually saying it is also wrong. Get down. The mothership Bonaparte was right in front of them. Krot and Olga actually got into a fight. In less than a minute, the robber Gauda actually managed to throw the Calamity Gauda off. Be careful. Run. When they saw the Calamity Gauda being thrown off the Gauda, the surrounding soldiers immediately covered their heads and fled in all directions. They were afraid of being affected by the battle between the 3 madmen. Boom. A black shadow fell from the sky and heavily fell in front of the long-tusked Lion Zero. Looking at the flying dust in front of him, Rei Mingkai frowned and decided to stay away from the 3 madmen. If he continued to stay here, he was afraid that he would be entangled by the 3 madmen. After calculating the time, the 3 madmen seemed to be nearing the time when the drug's effect disappeared. As long as he could survive this period, the three madmen would naturally, obediently leave. However, if you don't look for trouble, trouble will come to you. When the long-tusked Lion Zero slightly retreated and was about to go around, a flame swept across the front of the long-tusked Lion Zero. It was forbidden. It was the Forbidden's head that blocked the long-tusked Lion Zero's path. Hey, big lion, let's fight, shall we? Chapter 594. The three Gauda Mechs, Forbidden, Snatch, and Calamity formed a triangular formation, surrounding the pure white lion in the middle. They looked like they were provoking it. Sitting in the Forbidden Gauda Mech's cockpit, the smile on Shunny's face was almost the same as Krot's, who was provoking the long-toothed lion. As long as the pure white lion made a move, the three roaches would definitely cooperate and drag the long-toothed lion into their rhythm. Kai, can you kill them? The figure of the white cat, State Zero, appeared on Ray Minkai's shoulder. In this regard, Ray Minkai only set his eyes on the large land carrier, the Bonaparte. After a battle, the effects of the special medicine that the three roaches took should be about to wear off. Ray Minkai was not worried that he and the long-toothed lion would be besieged by the three roaches. What he wanted to know was Lars Mutayazi's attitude. If they were to fight, then Ray Minkai would not hesitate to let the three roaches leave early. In the Bonaparte, the general's face was a little nervous. The command of the three roaches was not in his hands, but in the hands of Lars Mutayazi. Even if the general knew that it was not good to betray Victoria Airport, he could not order the three roaches to stop their actions. On the other hand, Mutta Azrael stared silently at the pure white lion that was surrounded by three Gundams, Forbidden, Snatch, and Calamity. Although Lars Mutayazi could not see anything from the pure white lion's appearance, he could feel the lion's composure. This steel beast did not panic because of the hostility of its allies. On the contrary, Lars Mutayazi felt a looming murderous intent. To gamble or not to gamble? The answer was obvious. In order to cultivate the three roaches and create three new Gauda Mechs, Lars Mutayazi had spent a lot of effort. He did not want the three roaches and the new Gauda Mechs to be wasted in this ridiculous internal conflict. What a disobedient puppy. Inform those three guys. That's our honored guest. Those who attack the guests without permission will have to obediently await the arrival of punishment. After hearing Lars Mutayazi's words, the general let out a sigh of relief. When the order reached Kroth, Charles, and Olga, the three of them hissed in dissatisfaction. However, they didn't dare to disobey Lars' orders. Before they boarded the three Gundams, they had already personally witnessed the consequences of disobeying orders. In fact, they had even personally experienced it countless times. Cowardly lunatic! Seeing the three Gauda turn around and leave, the white cat State Zero muttered in dissatisfaction. On the other hand, Ray Minkai looked indifferent. Lars Mutayazi wasn't someone who would change sides at the last minute. Even though this guy was unscrupulous when it came to attacking the plants and the regulators, he was still capable of dealing with his allies. This is the Bonaparte. Lion, please reply if you receive. Hearing the call from the communication channel, the white cat State Zero turned around and looked at Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai raised his eyebrows and accepted the call. This is the Lion. Due to the impact of the previous battle, the mech is now seriously damaged and needs to be repaired immediately. I'm very sorry that I can't participate in the celebration banquet. As soon as the words came out, Lars Mutayazi's expression suddenly changed. The surrounding atmosphere also became a little colder. However, just when the general thought that Lars Mutayazi would explode on the spot and order the retreating three roaches to once again surround Lion Zero, Mutayazi suddenly revealed a slight smile. Is that so? Then, Lion, Your Excellency, I look forward to meeting you again. In addition, if Your Excellency wants to pass through Victoria Airport, please inform me in advance. I'll send someone to arrange everything for you. A conflict that could have happened was thus averted. until Lion Zero left the Earth Alliance's position under the watchful eyes of the public and walked towards the airport. Mutta Yazzie Lars didn't express anything. He only left a few bright red palm marks on the faces of the 3 roaches and scolded the 3 roaches. The explosion from Victoria Airport gradually subsided, but the dark clouds in the sky once again emitted the sound of rolling thunder. The smoke from the humans' war surrounding Victoria Airport was like a black pillar that soared into the sky. As the black pillar of flesh and blood that burned steel creations spread, the faintly fading dark clouds revived once more. Gotcha! Suddenly, a lightning bolt appeared in the sky from the east to the south and struck towards the mountain range in the distance. It's raining again. Long Fong Lion Zero stopped and looked up at the sky that was once again occupied by dark clouds and lightning. Rumble! A thunderclap! A gust of wind! It was already raining cats and dogs. Walla lala! The rain fell again. The grassland in front of Lion Zero was immediately shrouded in white, and it was difficult to see the scenery in front of him clearly. I hate rain. White Cat Zero muttered a few times, then shook its body as if to shake off the rain that wouldn't even exist on its body. Let's go back. Hearing this, White Cat Zero grinned. I just came to this hot grassland, and now I have to go back to the snowfield. It's really ice and fire at the same time. Why don't you stay here and be your Lion King? Ray Minkai rolled his eyes and teased. Stop. Are those felines lions? They're so weak that they can't even take a slap from me. After the battle, a man and a cat teased each other and left the battlefield. They returned to the field airport that was specially set up by the Earth Alliance to attack Victoria Airport. Through here, Ray Minkai would return to the military airport closest to Earth Alliance, and then transfer to Scandinavia from there. Bang! The glass of water fell to the ground, and as the water splashed, it also shattered into pieces and scattered at Yuri Amafai's feet. For Yuri Amafai, who had a strict style, this was something that could not be ignored, and it was absolutely impossible for this to happen. You. Say it again? What happened to an IGOL? Mr. Amafai, I'm very sorry. Your son Nigol Amafai participated in the defense of Victoria Airport and sacrificed himself heroically in order to protect the Allies. The Zaft soldier who stood upright had a regretful expression and said everything he knew in a mournful tone. According to the testimony of Isaac Mayer and Diego Elsman, who witnessed the whole process, as well as the results obtained from the battle video extracted from the 2 Storm airframes, Nigol Amafai was pierced through the cockpit by the enemy with a beam sword and died on the spot. What? This news was like a bolt from the blue, making Yuri Amafai, one of the 12 members of the Supreme Council, feel dizzy and almost unable to stand. Mr. Amafai, please be careful. When the Zaft soldier who came to report saw Yuri Amafai's collapse, he immediately rushed forward to support Yuri Amafai. The situation in front of him was not unfamiliar to this soldier. Since the war between the Earth Alliance and Plant, Zaft, he had been constantly receiving the list of casualties from the National Defense Committee and shuttling through Plant's colonial satellites with this list, guiding the souls of the Zaft soldiers who died on the battlefield to the place where they could return to. However, this was the first time this soldier personally delivered the news of the death of the 12 members of the Supreme Council to the member who decided the future of Plant. I'm fine. Thank you. Yuri Amafai raised his hand and held his forehead, barely keeping himself awake. Right. Nigol, did he leave anything behind? Yes. Nigol Amafai's relics have been taken in and will be sent back to Plant in 3 days. At that time, Mr. Amafai can personally confirm it. Hearing this news, Yuri Amafai couldn't help but sigh. There was a trace of sadness and regret in his voice. Is that so? Then, thank you very much. I have received the news. You can go back and hand in the mission. The soldier glanced at Yuri Amafai suspiciously, as if he was not at ease with the state of the member, but under Yuri Amafai's almost commanding words, he could only choose to leave. Yes. Then, Mr. Amify. Goodbye. The automatic door isolated the soldier's back and completely isolated Yuri Amify from the outside world. Silently looking at the closed automatic door, Yuri Amify suddenly stretched out his trembling right hand and pressed a few buttons on the keyboard on the side of the table. Click. The indicator light of the automatic door turned from yellow to red. Yuri Amify's office was cut off from the outside world. At this moment, Yuri Amify was truly isolated from the outside world. After doing all this, Yuri Amify's hands trembled and collapsed on the chair. His whole person fell into a dead silence. Gradually, a trace of sobbing quietly sounded, but there was a clear sense of suppression. Nigol. My son, at this moment, Yuri Amify was no longer a member of the Supreme Council who decided the future of plant, but a sad father who lost his beloved son. No one knew what happened to Yuri Amify, who had locked himself in the office for several days after receiving the news that his beloved son, Nigol Amify, died. The people in Yuri Amify's research center only knew that when the door that had been closed for several days opened again, Yuri Amify, who had always stood firmly in the Klein faction's camp with a gentle attitude, had disappeared. Instead, he was replaced by an angry father who wanted to avenge his son and was driven by hatred. Is that so? Nigol was killed. In the Klein family, a middle-aged man with a haggard face and a trace of tiredness in his eyes said in a hoarse voice. Yes, Nigol was killed. Sitting opposite the middle-aged man was a young girl wearing a purple dress with long pink hair tied up. The middle-aged man moved his gaze and glanced at the face that made him feel angry. This is your plan? To provoke plants' hatred for the Earth Union and cause a bigger and more terrible war? Although the anger in the middle-aged man's eyes was terrifying, the girl in the purple dress was unmoved. She smiled gently and shook her head slightly. No. This is not our intention. Father, our purpose is only to let this world have its own master, a master who can guide it to the future. Father, please don't panic and don't be angry because of this. That familiar face, that familiar voice, that familiar posture, made the middle-aged man have the illusion that his beloved daughter was in front of him. However, the middle-aged man slammed the table hard. Enough. Who are you? Why did you disguise yourself as Lux? The smile on the girl's face did not diminish. I'm just a woman who loves Aslan Sarah deeply and is angry for the injustice he has suffered and will suffer. As for why I'm here with this face, Father, didn't you already know? You want to use Klein's power? No, Siegel Klein, will never allow it. Use? No, that's not right, Father. The girl gently waved her hand, indicating that she had no intention of using the Klein sect. The Klein sect is indeed powerful, but to me, to us, it's just a grain of sand in the vast universe. The girl's face showed a charming smile. The reason why I'm here with this face is only for one person, and that is the person who should have been Lux Klein's husband, Aslan Sarah. You! The girl's frank words made Siegel stunned on the spot. Looking at the stunned Siegel, the girl stood up, walked to the window, and gently pulled the curtains. Father, do you know? Every time I see the scene below, my heart is torn apart. As the girl's words gradually turned into heartache, Siegel reacted and subconsciously pulled the curtains beside her. The next second, Siegel's expression froze. In the bright and spacious glass room, a girl in a white dress with beautiful pink hair and a delicate face was sitting in front of the bed, talking and laughing with an unfamiliar young man lying on the bed. Lux? No. Father, that's not Lux Klein. That's just the clone LH-033. Clone? You guys? Siegel's rationality collapsed on the spot. Ever since the Silver Wind incident, Siegel's rationality had been attacked by hatred. Her rationality, which had improved because of Lux's recovery, was completely destroyed by the existence of the two fake Lux. Although Siegel was a civilian, her tall body still brought a strong visual impact to others. Especially when she was furious, it was even more terrifying. However, before Siegel could pounce in front of the girl, a huge pressure pressed down from the sky and pressed Siegel to the ground. "This won't do, Father. You don't have the demeanor of one of the 12 members of the Supreme Council." The girl looked at Siegel, who fell to the ground and revealed a carefree smile. Chapter 595. On the pure white snowfield, small footprints kept extending toward the lake that was sealed by the cold. Behind these small footprints, there was a little girl with pink hair fluttering in the wind. She was wearing a thick thermal jacket, and her face was flushed red from the cold wind. Wait for me. State 0. The little girl panted. In the snow-white fog, she stepped on the snow and chased after the white cat in front of her with great difficulty, step by step, stopping at times. From afar, this might be the beautiful scene of a lively little elf playing on the snowfield. It seems that Clia's body is fine. Not far away, on the balcony of the wooden house, Ray Minkai looked at the little girl chasing the white cat State 0, and nodded slightly. Yes. After the Scandinavian doctors examined Clia many times, they came to a similar conclusion. Lakis, who was holding hot coffee in both hands, walked out of the house. She handed the coffee to Ray Minkai while recalling Clia's diagnosis report. The current Clia will not have any major problems in the next few years. However, because she is a clone, there may be signs of accelerated growth. In addition, there are other hidden dangers that may or may not happen that have not been discovered. The next few years? Ray Minkai took the coffee and took a sip. He once again looked at Clia and the white cat State 0. Just from the lively figure chasing the white cat State 0, Clia did not look any different from other children of the same age. However, in the depths of the body that was similar to Lakis when she was young, there was an unknown time bomb hidden. Actually, Lakis held the coffee cup in her right hand and gently placed her left hand on the cold fence. She said faintly in the mist that rose slowly with her breathing, "I once thought of finding an opportunity to return to plant and use the technology there to conduct a comprehensive examination on Clia." Hearing this, Ray Minkai nodded. This is a necessary and correct choice. However, we can't do it now, can we? After several attempts, both Jormungand and Astrid had confirmed that they had lost contact with Klein and my father, Siegel Klein. Whether it is the official channels on the surface or the secret channels we established under the family alliance, they are unable to establish contact with my father. With that, Lux could not help but sigh. This proves that the enemy is likely to have the Klein faction, no, Zaft in their hands. Ray Minkai could not help but nod at this conclusion. The reason for losing contact with Siegel Klein was not because of the Sala faction. Judging from Patrick Sala's actions and performance, he did not completely become the demon in the memory who did not hesitate to use the Genesis to destroy Earth for revenge. Therefore, the mastermind controlling Siegel Klein could only be the person who had swapped Lux Klein for the prince. Oh right. Jormungandr asked me to give you this document. This topic did not last long before Lakis took the initiative to change it. Ray Minkai glanced at the document that Lakis took out from the house, then placed the coffee cup on the railing and took the document. This is the final report of the island? Yes. According to Jormungandr, this is the case. Lakis nodded and turned to look at Clia, who was chasing after the white cat 0 with a snowball in her hand. This is the final report combined with the intelligence reported by the people lurking in the Sahak family surrounding the circle of Midgard. Also, in this document there is a name that I am very concerned about. A name that you are concerned about? Ray Minkai's gaze wandered between Lakis and the document, then he opened the document. As a result, his gaze suddenly froze. Miss E. What appeared in front of Ray Minkai was a record of the researchers creating clones of Clia and the others. No, it should be called photocopies. In the rows of data, the name that was marked many times, Miss E, was particularly eye-catching. This name may be just a normal honorific to the people of this world. But to Ray Minkai, it was an important piece of news that was enough to make his expression serious. Miss E. Can it be so coincidental? Ray Minkai could not help but make a series of assumptions about all the anomalies he had encountered so far with the name Miss E in his mind. With the name Miss E as the center, in the vortex of clues that gradually rolled up, Ray Minkai suddenly realized that all of this seemed to be controlled by a pair of invisible hands before the MDE bomb exploded. While escorting Lakis Klein, who had become the ambassador of universal peace, they encountered the explosion of the MDE bomb. Then, after falling into this world, they encountered the Silver Wind incident while escorting the Lakis Klein of this world. Then, they discovered that the fake Lakis Klein had appeared and replaced the real Lakis Klein. This series of clues that once puzzled Ray Minkai were connected the moment the name Miss E appeared in front of him, a path that should have led to the truth, but Ray Minkai had never imagined. Everything before the explosion of the MDE bomb, the Parliament of Destiny, or at least Miss E, had already planned and executed everything. First, they used the MDE bomb to kill Lakis Klein, who was the ambassador of universal peace and was also an important member of the Space Administration. Then, they used the Silver Wind to erase the Lakis Klein of this world. After eliminating all unstable factors, they could smoothly use Lakis Klein's identity to influence Plant and achieve the goal of controlling this world. As for the final goal, Ray Minkai could not help but have a question mark in his mind. Would the Parliament of Destiny simply act with the goal of world domination? In the many files of the Space Administration, the number of worlds destroyed due to the activities of the Parliament of Destiny was at least 4-digit. This was the number within the range of time and space that the Space Administration could detect. It seems that the truth is still a mystery. Ray Minkai secretly sighed. The appearance of the name Miss E gave Ray Minkai an opportunity to clear up the fog, but even more fog still shrouded the area in front of him. Why, Kai, have you thought of anything? Lakis seemed to have noticed Ray Minkai's strangeness. No. I just thought of some clues. After a pause, Ray Minkai closed the document in his hand. But these clues still need more information to verify. Lakis did not doubt him and nodded silently. For her, the situation might not be any worse. Ray Minkai gently pulled Lakis' right hand and felt the cold touch. Don't worry. We're going back to the universe. But before that, we still need to meet our old friend. Darkness. Darkness. The darkness drowned the consciousness like a tide. In this darkness where he didn't know the time and where he was, Nigger seemed to have experienced a long time. He didn't know why he was here. He didn't know what happened to him. It was just that. He just remembered the moment when his last memory was torn apart by a dazzling light. Wait. Light? What light? As if a drowning person grasped the last life-saving straw, as the light in his mind tore apart his memory, Nigger's long stagnant memory began to stir. Light. Light. The dazzling light pierced through the cockpit and crossed Nigger's upper right side until it penetrated Thunderbolt Gouda. If Nigger did not have the protection of the pilot suit at that time, he would have turned into some molecules in the atmosphere when the light penetrated Thunderbolt Gouda. But even so, Nigger's memory stopped at that moment. Where am I? I am already dead? The next moment the light appeared again. However, the light this time was not as dazzling as the previous light, as if it was calling Nigger. Subconsciously, Nigger reached out and caught the light. In an instant, the boundless darkness suddenly dissipated. In the eyes that slowly opened, there was the bright sunshine scattered in the ward. You're awake. As the curtain was blown by the breeze, a familiar voice came from the bedside, attracting the pair of eyes that had just woken up and had not fully recovered. As the gradually clear eyes moved, a familiar face appeared. You! In an instant, the pupils of the eyes obviously shrank. Immediately, Nigger closed his eyes and smiled calmly. Really? So I'm already in hell? How could it be? No? When I decided to join Zaft, I knew that slaughtering other people's hands would inevitably drag me into hell. Otherwise, how could I see you? Kai. Looking at Nigger lying on the bed, who seemed to have accepted his fate and thought that he was in hell, Ray Minkai suddenly laughed. Ha 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 ha. Nigger. I didn't expect you to be so emotional. It really surprised me. To be honest, before attending your piano performance, I didn't want to die so soon. Ray Minkai's hearty laughter and words made Nigger stunned. He opened his eyes subconsciously and looked at Ray Minkai in disbelief. Kai, you're not dead? The disbelief on Nigger's face made Ray Minkai nod. Kind of. The Lay Minkai you're looking at right now is a real, living person. And you, Nigger, are not dead. After all, I don't want to be a villain who kills his friends with his own hands. Kill your friends with your own hands! Nigger's expression was sluggish, and he suddenly jumped up from the bed. You're the pilot of that lion? Well, yes. At that time, I was driving the long-toothed lion to fight with you. Nigger. Sorry. There are various reasons for this. If you believe me, can you sit down and listen to my explanation quietly? Ray Minkai's sincerity at the moment made Nigger calm down. Say it. What happened in the end? What happened to the silver wind? Nigger took a few deep breaths and kept his thoughts as calm as possible. When Ray Minkai, who was supposed to be dead, appeared in front of him, Nigger found that the things he knew seemed to have changed dramatically. Thank you, Nigger. Thank you for your trust. But before that, I hope you can meet someone. After Ray Minkai thanked him, he got up and walked to the door, and stood there looking at Nigger. Nigger's gaze stayed on Ray Minkai for a moment, and then slowly moved to the door. After a long time, Nigger nodded slowly. Then, the door slowly opened under the watchful eyes of Nigori. As the door opened, the wind became a little noisy. A girl in a white dress with long pink hair and a double moon-shaped hair clip was standing there with a sweet smile. Just like in Nigger's memory, she was gently greeting him. Long time no see. Nigger, are your injuries better? At this moment, Nigger's eyes were shocked. It was unbelievable. Lay Minkai's resurrection from the dead had already surprised Niggal. The pink girl who appeared in front of him directly hit Nigger's consciousness back to the stagnant state not long ago. Lakis Klein? Am I back in plant now? In shock, Nigger instinctively looked at Ray Minkai, but Ray Minkai shook his head. This is not plant. It's Scandinavia, located in the extreme north of the earth. Nigger Amify, the person you are seeing now is Lakis Klein, the Lakis Klein you have known since you were a child, the one who took music lessons with you. Lakis stood beside Ray Minkai, looking at Nigger who she had known since she was a child, the one who took music lessons with her, with a serious expression. How is it possible? Wasn't Lux Klein supposed to be in plant? You? Nigger's thoughts gradually became restless. Amidst his increasingly rapid train of thought, Nigger had already discovered a fact that was enough to subvert plant. Who is the Lakis Klein in plant? I don't know. But the person standing in front of you, Nigger Amify, is Lakis Klein. I believe you should be able to recognize her. Yes. After all, they were playmates who grew up together. How could Nigger not recognize that the girl in front of him was Lakis Klein? It was just that he never thought that there were two Lakis Kleins in this world. A bitter smile appeared on Niggal's face. Lakis, I'm glad that you and Kai are still alive. But what was going on here? Lakis Klein of Plant and Kai, who is obviously a member of Zaft, are driving the pure white giant lion to fight with us. Nigger opened his mouth, and the bitter smile became deeper. I'm in a mess now, and I can't think at all. Chapter 596. In a blink of an eye, it was the next day. Impacted by the news of the real and fake Lakis and Ray Minkai coming back from the dead, Nigger finally accepted this fact after a whole night. No matter what he thought, Nicholas Amify was now nothing more than a prisoner. Although Ray Minkai and Lakis didn't mean this, Nigger understood that he might have to make a choice in this matter. And this choice was obvious. Kai. After the Silverwind incident, you boarded the Long Leg, no, the Archangel, until you landed on Earth? Looking at the two people who came to his room again, Nigger asked slowly. Well, yes. Ray Minkai's answer was abnormally straightforward. He had already guessed what Nigger was thinking. Sure enough. At that time, I didn't understand and didn't realize. It turned out that from that time onwards, the Gundams we faced were already being merciful towards us. Instead, Isaac kept murmuring that he would avenge you. As a result, he was beaten up by you. Nigger couldn't help but smile bitterly. As things became clear, Nigger had already figured it out. When they were chasing after the Archangel, it was not because of their own strength that they repeatedly retreated with heavy injuries. Instead, it was because their opponent, the Gundam, had shown mercy. Otherwise, at the beginning, they would have been killed by Gouda like their allies who were piloting the Zeon. Maybe saying this will make you think I'm hypocritical, but being merciful to you is my limit. If I let the other Zeons attack the Archangel, then Lakis will also be in danger. Not to mention, I can still sit and chat with you now. This is my responsibility. Nigger. Kai, you just want to protect me. As soon as Ray Minkai finished speaking, Lakis took the initiative to take over everything. However, Nigger shook his head. Kai, Lakis, you don't have to do this. Although I still don't understand now, I know that you just can't help it. If it were me, perhaps I wouldn't be as persistent as you. Nigger smiled bitterly and ended the topic on his own initiative. Alright. I've already understood the situation. Lux Kai, do you have a plan? For me to lie here and chat with you, you should be prepared, right? As he spoke, Nigger raised his hand and pointed to the void above the sky where many funnel-shaped colonial satellites were floating. Hearing that, Ray Minkai and Lakis looked at each other and heaved a sigh of relief. Nigger's statement at this moment showed that he had accepted their explanation. I did make some preparations, but before that you must take care of your body. I don't want Senator Amafe to see you so sick. Ray Minkai teased Nigger with a half-smile, but unexpectedly, Nigger immediately thought of what Ray Minkai and Lakis would do next. Father? Kai, Lux, you two are thinking of. I have some plans, but we need to go back to the universe to know the specifics. Nigger, please take care of your injuries now. Lakis interrupted Nigger's words. Regardless of whether Nigger knew what his father Yuri Amifai's plan was, for now, Ray Minkai and Lakis did not want to put too much pressure on Nigger. Really? Then, my task now is to take care of my body. After leaving Nigger's ward, Ray Minkai and Lakis walked on the aisle of the hospital atrium, looking at the doctors and nurses who came and went in a hurry shuttling through the various buildings. Kai, are we really going back to space? At this moment, Lakis had changed from the image of a pink princess to a black-haired girl. If not, she would not be able to stand in public like this. It's time to go back. The path to the universe has been opened, and Jormungand and the others have also found clues. Then, it's time for us to go back. Ray Minkai looked up at the sky. It was unknown when the bright and beautiful sun had hidden behind the thick layer of clouds. I think if this continues, Lady Sienna might have an accident. Father. When she thought of Sienna Klein who was still in plant, Lakis's expression could not help but become gloomy. Yes. No matter how perfect that Lakis Klein's disguise was, with the same memories and the same appearance, that Lakis Klein was still not her. After witnessing the birth of Lakis Klein, Sienna Klein, who grew up, was not the kind of person who could be confused simply by appearance and words. Therefore, Sienna Klein's situation was probably not good. The deep worry finally turned into an unwilling sigh. Let's go back. Kai, let's go back to the universe. A week later, Nickel, who had recovered, changed into a light outfit and put on a mask like someone else. This is the first time I've had such a novel experience. Kai, you're quite used to it. Touching the cold mask, Nigger could not help but complain. Just get used to it. After all, we're going to use the Earth Union ticket next. Ray Minkai, who was also wearing a mask, shrugged and said. Other than Lakis, who could freely disguise herself, Ray Minkai and Nigger could only use masks to hide their true faces. Fortunately, due to their participation in the attack and defense of the Victoria Airport, Lars Mutta Yazzi's promise was indeed very effective. After the application was sent through official channels, Lars Mutta Yazzi immediately ordered the approval of the application and specially selected a team to provide necessary services for Ray Minkai. For example, a certain newest mech that belonged to the Earth Union not long ago was loaded into a cargo spaceship through official channels under the watchful eyes of many Victoria Airport logistics personnel. Those who did not know would think that Ray Minkai and the others were a secret force sent by the Earth Union to the universe. For this point, when they saw Ray Minkai and Nigger who were masked, this speculation was gradually accepted by the surrounding people. This might be a wonderful misunderstanding. In the reception hall, Lakis, Astrid, and Clea were saying goodbye. During this period of time together, Clea had become accustomed to the existence of Lakis, and when Ray Minkai participated in the attack and defense of the Victoria Airport, she developed a sister-like relationship with Lakis. And when this relationship was gradually warming up, Lakis suddenly wanted to go to the universe. This made Clea, who had felt the light and warmth from Ray Minkai and Lakis, unable to accept this sudden separation. Sorry, Clea. Now I have some things to do, so I have to leave here for a while. Lakis gently stroked Clea's little head and said softly. A while. Clea was a little skeptical. A while. Maybe there will be some troublesome matters that will delay me. But I have a promise with Clea. I will definitely come back. Lakis reached out her hand and gestured to make a pinky promise with Clea. This was probably a rare gesture for Lakis. The reason why she used this gesture was because not long ago, when Clea used all her strength to chase the white cat, State Zero, and could not help but want to cry, Ray Minkai used this gesture to make a promise with Clea. He would let State Zero the white cat be carried by Clea for a while, but Clea had to study hard and eat well. To be honest, at first, Lakis was very surprised that Ray Minkai and Clea made a promise by pinky promise. But after that, she had a deep impression of Clea, who was carrying State Zero the white cat, sitting at the table and studying seriously. Therefore, Lakis also made a promise with Clea by pinky promise like Ray Minkai. You must come back. It's a promise. Clea bit her lip and hesitantly reached out her hand to make a promise with Lakis. I will. Clea. My cute sister. After making a pinky promise with Clea seriously, Lakis raised her gaze and looked at Astrid, who was beside Clea. Astrid. My sister, Clea, I'll leave it to you. Astrid nodded solemnly and said with a serious expression, That's right. Yes. Clea is the princess of our SAS family, and so is Scandinavia. Astrid knew about Ray Minkai and Lakis' actions and supported them. However, Astrid was well aware of the risks involved. Then, I'll leave it to you, Astrid. Lakis nodded at Astrid and patted Clea's head again. Then, under Clea's reluctant gaze, she left the guest hall. All of a sudden, just as Lakis was about to step into the boarding gate, Clea's shout suddenly reached Lakis's ears. Sister! You must come back with brother! Stopping in her tracks, Lakis resisted the urge to turn around and nodded vigorously. Then, she stepped into the boarding gate under the watchful eyes of Kriya and Astrid. Facing Ray Minkai and Nigger's somewhat puzzled gaze, Lakis simply said, Let's go! Let's go back to the universe! It's time to uncover the mystery. Under the clear sky. The cargo spaceship carrying the Dark Assault repaired by Scandinavia, Ray Minkai, Lakis, and Nigger rushed into the sky along an accelerated trajectory under the full propulsion of the additional thrusters. On the rooftop that still had many bomb craters, a pair of bright eyes stared intently at the cargo spaceship that flew higher and higher, disappearing directly into the sky. "We should go, Clea." The bright eyes slowly withdrew their gaze from the sky. Let's go, Astrid. If we stay here, sister will be worried." Looking at the long pink hair fluttering in the wind, Astrid suddenly felt that Clea really looked like Lakis Klein. As humans became more and more involved in the development of the universe, void creations that originally only existed in myths and legends also appeared like bamboo shoots after the rain. And among these creations, the Troy space station belonging to D was busy as usual according to the research schedule. Among these busy researchers, there was a beautiful woman with an intellectual aura who was carefully and seriously inspecting her research project. Among the equipment and supplies that were neatly arranged according to different needs, a young man with a tender face but far more stable than his peers appeared in front of the woman. "Serene, it seems that there are guests coming to our space station today. The station master has already issued a notice for us to welcome the guests." "Guests?" The woman called Serene thought for a while and didn't care much. Maybe our sponsors are on a whim and want to see if there is any return on their investment? It's just a normal visit. Saul, don't be too nervous. DSSD, the full name of the Deep Space Exploration and Development Organization. This was a research organization set up for the development of deep space. Among them, it insisted on being neutral and not taking sides, which attracted investments from all over the world. And among these investments, there were two sides that launched a large-scale war today, Earth Union and ZAF. Serene, who understood this very well, wasn't as surprised as her partner Saul. "Is that so?" Saul thought for a while and said with some uncertainty, "I see what the station master means. Today's guests seem to be very important. So important that the station master is preparing to personally welcome the guests." Personally welcome. Serene took a moment to process and immediately reacted. "Looks like it's the big sponsor that even the station master can't avoid. Let's go. Let's go." Serene lightly tapped her feet and floated over from Saul's side. Her casual appearance surprised Saul. "Wait, Serene, you're going to meet the guests like this?" At this moment, Serene was wearing a fluffy sleeveless top and black trousers. Other than that, she was wearing a white coat casually draped over her body. Although Selene's appearance was far above the norm, this casual style of clothing didn't seem to be suitable for meeting guests. "What? You're just a 16-year-old brat. Is it your turn to teach me how to meet guests? Edmund's education is really bad." Selene's casual words made Saul swallow his words. He could only obediently follow Serene to the port where the spaceships were parked at the Troy space station. As soon as she arrived, Serene immediately recognized the group of people who were standing in front of the station master and talking to him. That's the daughter of the SAS family?" "Yes. That's the second daughter of the SAS family, Audrey SAS. Speaking of which, we're quite fated with her." At this moment, Edmund's voice came from behind. "Why are you here too? Is the deputy head of the security department so free?" Serene frowned slightly and turned around to look at the tall man beside her. "Yes. It's rare to meet someone of the same kind. How can I obediently stay in the office and not come out? Isn't that right?" "Same kind." When Edmund said this, Serene also noticed the man with a white mask standing in the middle of the crowd. "That's the knight guarding the young lady of the SAS family, Serene." Chapter 597. In the microgravity warehouse, a group of people walked between the materials that were neatly secured on both sides of the warehouse. "These are the latest materials and parts that we need to use for our experimental cutting-edge project," These materials are the latest materials developed by cutting-edge factories all over the world. With these materials, our cutting-edge theories will not stay on paper. Serene, who was acting as a temporary guide, was introducing the origins of the new materials and parts on both sides of the warehouse, causing the people behind to exclaim from time to time. Not to mention Ray Minkai's reaction, just Lux and Nickel's reaction was enough to make the DSSD personnel think that this was the reaction of a rich and foolish person. Lux was not the same. As the pilot of the MS, Nigger had probably never imagined that before the MS was manufactured, there would be such a meticulous way of doing things. This is the latest project that we have developed. A cutting-edge project for deep space exploration. Serene led the group through the aisle where the new materials and Type 0 were placed, and came to a laboratory that was separated by a huge semicircular transparent glass. Everyone followed Selene's gaze and found that there was a huge circular base that was connected by many lines in the middle of the glass. On the base, there was a metal ring made of an unknown metal. At first glance, it seemed to be about 10 meters in diameter. This is... Lux's gaze wandered around the metal ring. Under the clear and conspicuous lines, there was a looming, unknown translucent part. Under the illumination of the light, there was a sense of sacredness. Radiant Bearer. Serene said the name that made Ray Minkai's gaze change. The moment Ray Minkai saw the ring, the name flashed through his mind. Radiant Bearer. This equipment was unknown in Seed, but in the subsequent CD, it became famous because of the activity of the two mechs. Destiny Gouda and Freedom Assault. These two mechs used the Radiant Bearer in the later stages of CD and obtained unimaginable maneuverability, thus creating different glorious deeds. In the subsequent Stargazer saga, Stargazer Gouda, who was equipped with the Radiant Bearer, pushed Darkness Assault to the depths of the solar system at the end of the Phantom Force's attack on the Troy space station. Of course, this is just the first step of a project that has just stopped on paper. This is the prototype? Ray Minkai looked at the ring that was very different from the one in his memory and asked. Well, yes, this is the prototype. Serene nodded and then explained. This is a deep space exploration project developed based on the MS equipped with a nuclear power reactor. Nuclear power reactor? When they heard this term, the look in Lux and Nickel's eyes changed. For plants people, nuclear power, bloody bloody Valentine, bloody bloody Valentine, comma. Yes, nuclear power reactor. Serene stared deeply at the metal ring. For her, this might be the greatest research project in her life. As long as this project was realized, then the footsteps of human exploration of the universe would continue to extend into the deep space without end. Therefore, she didn't notice the strangeness of Lux and Nickel. But now, there are no usable nuclear power reactors on Earth. Ray Minkai glanced at Lux and Nickel and said, yes. So, we are waiting. Selene's words made Lux's eyes change. Waiting? Yes. We are perfecting the design of the Radiant Bearer while waiting for humans to usher in the moment of using nuclear power reactors again. Serene smiled slightly, nodded, and said what she knew. In our refinement, the Radiant Bearer, which must use a nuclear power reactor to start the design, has successfully broken through to the point where it can be used by the most popular battery pack design MS. However, when the Radiant Bearer system is activated, some external forces are needed. External forces. At this point, Ray Minkai already understood what was going on. If Ray Minkai, who was familiar with the settings of Stargazer Gouda, still couldn't understand, he should find a piece of tofu and kill himself. Serene nodded and didn't say much. Instead, she looked back at Lux. Miss Audrey, I have completed your previous commission. Do you need to check it? So fast. Lux was a little surprised. It's just a modification of the ready-made thing. It didn't take much effort. After a pause, Serene said again. I just don't know if the body you brought over can be installed successfully. The design of that thing is developed according to the MS specifications currently produced by Earth United. The conversation between Lux and Selene made Ray Minkai and Nikor a little confused. But with Selene leading the way, Ray Minkai and Nikor, who came to another laboratory, saw an MS with its outer armor dismantled, leaving only the skeleton and many control circuits. Under the control of the mechanical arm, the MS with the energy circuit was slowly performing some basic movement. And behind this almost simple MS skeleton that only met the basic requirements, a pair of steel wings that slowly unfolded to a certain angle and then slowly retracted attracted the attention of Ray Minkai and Nikor. Although the two still couldn't see the door to this pair of steel wings, as pilots, they could tell at a glance that this pair of steel wings was extraordinary. Is that a thruster? Nikor muttered with some uncertainty, because at that moment, Nikor seemed to have connected the metal ring he just saw with the conversation between Lux and Selene. Probably. Ray Minkai was also surprised. The style of the pair of steel wings was somewhat similar to the radiant bearer used by Destiny Gauda and Assault on Freedom. If the metal ring seen before was the prototype of the radiant bearer, then this pair of steel wings was probably the prototype of the radiant bearer. This is the radiant bearer that has been adapted from its appearance to its interior. At the same time, it is also the latest model of the radiant bearer that can be carried on an MS that uses a battery pack. Selene seemed to sigh inwardly, but she immediately became spirited again. She met Lux's gaze and said sternly, "Don't worry, Miss Audrey. I've completed your commission. As long as you're willing, we can start work at any time to transplant the wing-type radiant bearer." That was it. Ray Minkai and Nikor already understood what the previous conversation between Lux and Selene was about. "Kai, can I?" After Lux nodded at Selene, she turned back to look at Ray Minkai and asked softly, "Can I still refuse?" Ray Minkai sighed helplessly in his heart. He didn't expect that Lux would actually come up with such a surprise gift and send it to him without his knowledge. "But, Dr. Selene, I'm sure you know the drawbacks of the battery pack. If the radiant bearer is activated after the PS armor is activated." Ray Minkai didn't finish his sentence, but Selene already understood what he meant. "Sir Kai, please rest assured. The wing-type radiant bearer won't bring any burden to the body other than the PS armor. Because, when designing the wing-type radiant bearer, we have already taken this situation into consideration. Therefore, on the wing-type radiant bearer, we have already integrated a battery pack that can support its full power operation for 5 minutes. 5 minutes? In other words, after exhausting the energy of the battery pack, the wings will turn to consume the body's energy? Nikor was shocked and quickly asked. 5 minutes of full power operation was neither short nor long. In the hands of a normal pilot, it might be of little use. But in the hands of ACE, it was a powerful weapon that could turn the tide of a battle. Yes, our time is too short. To be able to make the wing-type radiant bearer operate independently for 5 minutes is already our limit. Selene's face was apologetic, but Lux and Ray Minkai didn't mind. "No, Dr. Selene, you have already done very well. But I want to know how much power the wing-type radiant bearer can provide to the body under full power operation?" Ray Minkai was most concerned about this question. Selene pondered for a few minutes, then said, "In fact, we haven't done much actual combat testing. In such a short time, being able to build this experimental MS armor skeleton and create the wing-type radiant bearer is already our best." After taking a breath, Selene continued, "Of course, from the experimental data collected during this time, it should be able to provide 2 to 3 times the thrust for the wing-type radiant bearer. Instant output of thrust. Yes, instant output. Of course, this isn't the limit of the wing-type radiant bearer. I understand. As a prototype, I'm already satisfied to be able to reach this level. Thank you very much, Dr. Serene. After Ray Minkai and Serene exchanged a few words, Serene waved her hand, indicating that it was nothing. For the people in this space station, being able to easily obtain sponsorship funds from big investors to continue their research was undoubtedly a top priority. At the same time, being able to gain the recognition of big investors through their research was of utmost importance. So, Miss Audrey, Sir Guy, do you have any questions about the wing-type radiant bearer? No. If possible, I hope to install the wing-type radiant bearer as soon as possible. Everything will be as you command, Sir Guy. Just like that, the wing-type radiant bearer became the newest armor of the Dark Assault. But in the hearts of Lakis and Nigger, there was a bigger haze waiting to be dispelled. There was still some time before the installation of the wing-type radiant bearer was completed. During this time, the Troy space station had already prepared a dining area and a room for rest for Lakis, Ray Minkai, Nigger, and the others. The white cat, State Zero, was lying under the table in boredom, looking at the humans walking on the red carpet under artificial gravity. If it weren't for Ray Minkai forbidding the white cat, State Zero, to appear openly in this space, the white cat would have become the darling of the Troy space station. After all, because the ecosystem of the space station was not as perfect as that of the colonial satellites, the restrictions on ecological control were very strict. Although a very small number of cats and dogs would not have any impact on the ecosystem of the space station, for the sake of a clean environment required by some projects, the researchers of the space station rarely brought furry pets into the space station. After staring at the gravity area in boredom for a while, the white cat, State Zero, also confirmed that no one would eavesdrop here. After peeking, it turned and disappeared into the shadows. Ray Minkai nodded at Lakis and Nigger, indicating that they could relax for a while. Both of them breathed a sigh of relief, and could not help but look at each other. Nigger: I remember that Uncle Yuri seems to be in charge of developing projects related to nuclear power, right? Lakis looked around as if she was confirming that no one would come over in a short period of time. Then, she asked softly, "What's the matter?" Nigger's face darkened, and then he nodded. "Yes. Although my father didn't say anything, I saw some information about nuclear power reactors from the books he usually read." Lakis and Nigger kept exchanging what they knew, and Ray Minkai, who was listening by the side, already had an idea. Nigger's death had probably become the flame of revenge for Yuri Amify. In other words, the most powerful ace in seed, freedom and justice was about to be born. Hee. This is like shooting yourself in the foot. The voice of the white cat, State Zero, rang in Ray Minkai's ears. No. Even if I don't do it, Nigger may die. He will really die. Ray Minkai did not care much about the white cat, State Zero's mockery. Changing the trajectory of history was already a common occurrence for Ray Minkai. No. I want to go back and see. Miss Audrey and Guy. I want to go back and see. Maybe I can stop my father. The more they exchanged ideas, the more flustered Nigger's heart became. The trauma caused by Bloody Valentine's Day to the people of Plant was deeply engraved in their hearts. Nigger did not want his father to be a person who would repeat the same mistake. Wait, you can't go back alone. Maybe I have a friend who can help you. Guy, you. Lakis looked at Ray Minkai reaching out to hold the impulsive Nigger. Before she could rejoice that Ray Minkai was able to hold Nigger, she was shocked by Ray Minkai's next sentence. Audrey, there are some things that you need to see with your own eyes to understand. Chapter 598. In the end, Nickel left. After learning that his father might become the person who reopened Pandora's box with his own hands, he could no longer hold back his anxiety. So, after Ray Minkai called Law's recycler through DS's communication network, Nickel boarded the new mothership New Home and sneaked into Plant's April City with the help of Law to find an opportunity to meet Yuri Amify, Nickel's father. If Nickel hadn't died yet, maybe it wouldn't have been so troublesome. But now, in the official documents of Plant and Zaft, Nigger was already listed as one of the martyrs. Therefore, Nickel, a hero, could only act quietly. Don't worry. Professor and Liam will arrange everything. When he saw Law again, the young man, who was addicted to machinery, was attracted by the novelty in D's Troy space station, causing him to almost forget the purpose of coming here. If it weren't for his friends who still remembered the purpose of this trip, this guy would have plunged into the novelty that could only be seen in the Troy space station. In the end, with Law's assurance, Ray Minkai and Lakis watched Nickel leave. Kai, do you think Nickel will succeed? Lakis's eyes became a little confused as Newhome went away. This was no longer the war she knew. Although Lakis had been protected by Ray Minkai since the Silverwind incident, this did not prevent Lakis from carefully observing the world with her eyes and observing the people around her. The people on Archangel, the people of the 8th Fleet, Alaska, the people of the United Earth Headquarters, the people of America, the people in the desert, the people on the snowy mountains, and the people who wandered in the refugee camps, avoiding the war, these various people had already taken root in Lux's heart. The more she thought of them, the more Lakis wanted to end the war as soon as possible, lest the war develop to an irreversible point. However, when Lakis decided to return to the universe, she found that the war was about to take an irreversible step. This is a spiral. Look. The corner of Ray Minkai's mouth twitched, but he swallowed the words of comfort he was about to say. Spiral. Lux slowly retracted her gaze and looked at Ray Minkai. Yes, spiral. From the moment the first shot was fired in this war, in order to reverse the Earth's united forces, the MS, whose equipment was manufactured first, appeared on the scene. The spiral began. Lei Minkai raised his hands and imitated a spiral gesture before continuing, I'm not sure if it's true or not. The appearance of the first MS gene in human history to be put into actual combat allowed Zaft, who was originally at a disadvantage and wasn't favored by the mainstream of the world, to make a name for itself. It successfully defeated the menacing Earth Alliance and completed the process of allowing Plant to step onto the international stage in a sensational manner. This situation is extremely unbearable for the Earth United Alliance. Therefore, in the war with Zaft, the Earth Alliance also began to mobilize its huge war potential as the most powerful and largest national federation in the human world. It began to develop an airframe that could compete with the MS gene used by Zaft and even the subsequent models. Attack Gouda? Lux, who used to be in the Archangel, naturally knew what the Earth Alliance developed. Yes. This is a battle between spears and shields. No, it should be a battle between swords and swords. Ray Minkai made a gesture that represented a sword. The sword in your hand can kill 10 of my people, then I will search for and even develop a sharp sword that can kill 100 of your people. After a pause, Ray Minkai slowly exhaled. Audrey. This is a contradictory spiral where the sharp sword in one's hand can be the first to finish off the opponent. In order to deal with Jean, the Earth Alliance developed a series of new MS and Archangel that attacked Gao de Lux's eyes flashed with a thoughtful light. And after Zaft learned and deeply understood the threat posed by the new MS and battleships developed by the Earth Alliance, in order to protect the space dominance that has been in his hands since the beginning of the war, he can only continue to invest more effort and energy to develop stronger and newer MS in the resource area to create more powerful blades to kill the enemy? At this point, Lux seemed to sigh. So, Zaft personally opened the sealed Pandora's box? Yes. This is an unavoidable and unstoppable spiral. Nigger may be able to stop Yuli Amify, but Zaft and even Plant is already the world of the pro-war faction. I see. After understanding the situation that Nigger had to face, Lux was not impatient or agitated. Instead, she nodded calmly. Perhaps Lux had already noticed it, but she might still be avoiding this question. Under Rei Minkai's guidance, Lux finally decided to face this world that was about to enter an irreversible spiral. In the dark shadow of Earth, there was the light of civilization that lit up the land. Looking from space, the brighter the light of civilization, the more it represented the glorious miracles created by human civilization in that area. In the night sky that was illuminated by the light of civilization, an extremely fast stream of light inadvertently streaked across. If there were drunkards who occasionally looked up at the night sky, this stream of light might be regarded as a meteor that could be used as a topic of conversation at a banquet. Energy output is stable. Energy consumption is at a stable level. Based on the current consumption level, the independent battery carried by the flying wing-type radiance bearer meets the design requirement. With the real-time monitoring of the Troy space station, the flying wing-type radiance bearer installed on the Dark Assault basically met the design requirements. Your Excellency Guy. Based on the conclusion of the multiple accelerations just now, the flying wing-type radiance bearer basically meets the requirements you raised. Serene nodded in satisfaction, then she sent a message to the Dark Assault that was driving the flying wing-type radiance bearer. I've received it. But there's still some time before the flying wing-type radiance bearer runs out of energy. I hope to collect as much data as possible. Rei Minkai's request wasn't considered a requirement. After all, the flying wing-type radiance bearer was already installed on the Dark Assault. Rei Minkai could pilot the Dark Assault however he wanted. Even if the flying wing-type radiance bearer's battery pack was used up, the Dark Assault's battery pack would still be enough for it to return to the Troy space station. Celine and the girl in charge of communication looked at each other and silently nodded. Okay. Your Excellency Guy, please be careful. Understood. The steel wings on the Dark Assault's back flapped, and a stream of light swept past the Troy space. In a certain desolate universe, an armed spaceship that was modified from a civilian spaceship was quietly flying along a messy gravel belt in this universe. And this armed spaceship was the Tsong Yundi that had separated from Rei Minkai for some time. It was also the mothership of the mercenary giant Snake Tail. It's already been more than 70 hours. Why isn't Yaja back yet? Could there have been an accident? Yundi, should we take action? As the diplomat of giant Snake Tail, Lee de Weiler, who was an expert in both intelligence, seemed to be a little anxious. It had been nearly 72 hours since Rarita Yaja, the intelligence agent of the giant serpent's tail, left the mothership and snuck into the secret colonial satellite in the depths of the asteroid belt alone. However, there was still no information or signal. One could not help but imagine that the intelligence expert Lolita Yaja, who was pursued by many mercenaries, would actually fail one day. Wait a little longer. As the leader of Giant Snaketail, Song Yundi slowly raised his eyes and looked at the gravel belt outside the porthole. The mothership's location was the only place in the gravel belt that could hide the mothership. If they acted rashly, they might attract the enemy's attention and might even endanger Lolita Yaja's safety. Hearing Song Yundi's words, the silver-haired man leaning against the wall, Elijah Keel, and Lee de Weiler looked at each other and silently shook their heads, signaling Lee de Weiler to calm down. Fortunately, the anxiety of their companion's long absence was quickly calmed down. A single-person miniature spaceship quietly appeared from the depths of the gravel belt. It emitted a signal light toward the mothership of Giant Snake Tail while accelerating to converge with the mothership. It's Yaja. In the surprise of their companion's safe return, the miniature spaceship was quickly stored in the mothership. Yundi Liedeweiler, guess what I found? The woman walked down from the miniature spaceship and took off her helmet. She had a mysterious smile as she looked at Song Yundi and Lee de Weiler, who came to greet her. As for Elijah, he stayed in the bridge and was on alert for possible situations. You didn't encounter the enemy? No crossfire? Song Yundi didn't respond to the mystery of his companion. Instead, He looked at the clean spacesuit on his companion and asked in surprise. Lolita Yaja smiled and gave a thumbs up. Yeah. There's no one on that colonial satellite, and from the degree of abandonment of the facilities, it seems to have been there for about a month. A month! Lee de Weiler was taken aback. He had paid a high price to obtain information about this colonial satellite. How did it suddenly become an abandoned colonial satellite? Yes, this is a colonial satellite that has just been abandoned by humans. But I still found some information on it. This is why I stayed there for so long. Tell me about it. Song Yundi saw some clues from the mysterious smile on Lolita Yaja's face. How should I put it? Before this colonial satellite was abandoned by humans, it was indeed very similar to the content mentioned in the mission we accepted. Also, I found some information on it. In this information, it turned out to be information about many members of the Plant Supreme Council. Also, this information is very comprehensive, to the point that it makes me feel terrified. Look, even their clothing preferences, food preferences, and even their subconscious little movements are all present. Lolita Yaja said as she showed the information she found to her companions. Song Yundi didn't read much before he looked at Lee de Weiler with a solemn expression. As an expert in intelligence, Lee de Weiler also sensed that something bad was going to happen. Yundi, we seem to have been involved in a huge incident. Song Yunxiao nodded silently, but his eyes, hidden behind his brown glasses, were shining brightly. Yaja, Lee de Weiler, let's go. According to the agreement, let's go to D.S.D. Understood. After a series of tests, Dark Assault and the Wing-type Radiant Bearer had completed all the tests. At the end of the test, it could be described as Chunibu. Now, Dark Assault and the Wing-type Radiant Bearer had completely merged into one. In normal mode, Dark Assault's flight consumption came from its own battery pack, and it wouldn't trigger the activation mechanism of the Wing-type Radiant Bearer. In this combat mode, apart from its own power, Dark Assault's flight power would also be partially supported by the Wing-type Radiant Bearer. Of course, this didn't mean that the Wing-type Radiant Bearer would use up all 5 minutes of its full power output. Instead, the Wing-type Radiant Bearer's basic function was to collect energy from the particles of the solar wind and gradually provide thrust for Dark Assault. However, this process required some conversion time. Finally, and also the most powerful full combat mode, the Winged Radiance Bearer would unleash all of its maximum thrust. Within 5 minutes of maximum output, it would provide an unprecedented mobility boost to Pitch Black Assault, helping him turn the tables in one fell swoop. It had to be said that this equipment was necessary for Dark Assault and Rei Minkai. This was because the enemies that Lei Minkai would have to face in the upcoming operation might be even stronger than the ones he had faced before. Sir Kai, there's an armed spaceship calling itself Serpent's Tail requesting to speak with you. Rei Minkai, who had just walked down from Dark Assault and hadn't had time to chat with Lakis, had his eyes lit up as he looked at Lakis. Audrey, Song Yunjiao and the others are here. Perhaps this is an opportunity. Song Yunjiao? The mercenary we met on the snowy mountain? Lakis immediately recalled the situation on the snowy mountain. Yes. When we parted, I asked Serpent's Tail to investigate some things in the universe, and when the results were out, I came to D.S.D. and requested to meet with Celine. Now, it seems that they should have the result. The results. Yes. The results. Hopefully, this will be good news. In the distance, an armed spaceship with a lightning-fast snake symbol was slowly approaching Troy Space Station. Chapter 599. In the void, groups of Xeon painted in the style of Zaft appeared. Behind these Xeons, there were 2 Nazca-class high-speed warships. This was a surprise attack. A surprise attack that made Song Yunxiao and all the members of Giant Snake's Tail extremely unsightly. This was because these enemies had followed the tail of the giant serpent without anyone noticing and had arrived at the Troy space station's universe. We're being followed? Being followed by the Zaft army? Lolita Yezha looked at the approaching Zeon with a shocked expression. A casual count revealed that there were 7 Zeons. After leaving the abandoned colonial satellite, they carefully came to the universe where the Troy space station was located. How could they be ambushed by an unknown enemy at this crucial moment when they were about to converge? Let's attack. Lied Yezha. You guys move closer to the Troy space station and help them defend. Elijah, you attack with me. The enemies were about to reach them. Song Yunxiu didn't hesitate at all. Instead, he made his choice decisively. Wait, Xiu. What if the people in the space station treat us as enemies? Then, we'll turn around and leave. Song Yunxiu's answer was very fast, so fast that it made Lide slightly surprised. Okay. Lide, who was already a veteran among the mercenaries, quickly reacted and loudly agreed to Song Yunxiu's order. However, just as Giant Snake's tail began to move, a stream of light appeared from the Troy space station. Sir Kai. Although the Flying Wing-type Radiant Bearer's battery pack has been changed, it hasn't undergone the routine maintenance after the test. Please be careful. Celine's eyes flickered as she looked at the image. The Flying Wing-type Radiant Bearer's dark attack was activated again. Yes. Kai, you must be careful. Lux, who was standing beside Celine, said the same. But Rei Minkai was full of confidence. Don't worry. As someone who personally tested the Flying Wing-type Radiant Bearer, I'm very confident in it. Dr. Celine, your work is undoubtedly a masterpiece that will shock the world. Rei Minkai's words might not be wrong. When Destiny Gouda unfurled his pair of beautiful wings of light, many glue guys fell head over heels for him. However, due to the limitations of technology and materials, the steel Pulla model could not perfectly recreate the pair of beautiful wings of light. Celine sighed slightly. Sir Kai. Let's save the compliments later. Right now, the most important thing for us is to get rid of these enemies as soon as possible. After pausing for a moment, Celine continued. Just now, the station master tried his best to contact Zaft and Plant. But unfortunately, we can't get in touch with Zaft and Plant, and even with the Earth Union, we can't get in touch with them. It sounds familiar. When Rei Minkai heard Celine's words, he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Wasn't this the plot of the later stage of Stargazer? Wasn't this the scene where the Phantom Army, who coveted Stargazer Gao Da's AI technology, launched a surprise attack after hacking the relay satellite that connected the Troy space station to the outside world? How could it happen now? Moreover, the party that launched the surprise attack seemed to be Zaft. Wasn't this a bit messed up? Kai. The enemy's attack is here. Do you need me to monitor the situation of this new toy? White Cat State Zero's voice revealed a hint of curiosity. It was the first time it saw such a fun thing. No. Not for the time being. 5 minutes. This would be the first 5 minutes of actual combat between Dark Assault and the Winged Radiance Bearer. The wings of light on Dark Assault's back flapped, and it had already passed the mothership of the giant serpent's tail, rushing straight into the enemy's artillery fire. Fast, fast, fast. Rei Minkai didn't know how the people of the Troy space station viewed Dark Assault at this moment, but sitting in the cockpit of Dark Assault, Rei Minkai felt a little dizzy. Whether it was the enemy's figure or the enemy's artillery fire, it seemed to have become a slow-motion camera in Rei Minkai's eyes. Every subtle movement, every change in the trajectory of every movement was seen by Rei Minkai. So fast. What the hell is going on? I can't hit it. If the perspective was changed to Zeon and the Nazca-class high-speed warship, it would be a different scene. They were very slow in Rei Minkai's eyes, but they were looking at the Dark Assault that had almost turned into a stream of light in horror. The fire control system couldn't catch up. The naked eye couldn't catch up. Even in this situation, the Nazca-class high-speed warship completely abandoned the lock-on system and switched to manual aiming mode in an attempt to drown out the Dark Assault with a barrage of bullets to block its movement path, but still couldn't catch the winged Radiance-bearer's Dark Assault at full power. What they could see was that the meteor-like trajectory was constantly shrinking its range of movement. "No. Don't come over." In the flash of light, a Xeon turned into a fireball in the blink of an eye, deeply stinging the eyes of the Nazca-class high-speed warship's captain. How is it possible? It's just a civilian organization. How can it have an MS that is more powerful than our Xeon? Could this be the reason for the sudden order from the headquarters? As the fireball lit up in front of his eyes, the commander's memory also recalled the sudden order he received not long ago. The orders sent through the encrypted communication channel didn't have much content. It was just a brief description of the mission time, location, and target. When the command with the encrypted symbol from the National Defense Commission was placed in front of the captain's eyes, he had doubts. But now, after seeing the ghostly figure of the Dark Assault, the captain felt that he had understood the order from the National Defense Commission. Don't retreat. Send out all the Xeons that haven't been sent out yet. Block the movement range of that body as much as possible. Don't be afraid. That's the new body of Earth United. As long as we destroy it here, we'll be one step closer to the final victory. Amidst the captain's impassioned words of encouragement, the two Nazca-class high-speed warships quickly released all the remaining Xeon. A cornered dog will do something desperate? Ray Minkai glanced at the Nazca-class high-speed warship that began to accelerate after releasing the Xeons. Isn't that just right? If one of them lands on the ground, the battery pack of the new toy will run out very quickly. The White Cat State Zero waved its paw and then said, "If you let me monitor this new toy, it might be able to extend the time by a few minutes." No need. Ray Minkai moved his gaze and glanced at the screen that represented the energy consumption of the winged Radiant Bearer. The last 3 minutes? That's enough. The Dark Assault continued to pull out in the void, as terrifying as a ghost that rushed into the human world from the underworld. No matter how hard Xeon's pilots tried, to the point where they did not hesitate to take the risk of adopting a dense formation in an attempt to create a barrage that was enough to block the dark attack, it was all to no avail. In the dense bullet screen that made Song Yunxiu and Elijah's eyelids twitch wildly, the Dark Assault's figure was still like a ghost. It wasn't hit by a single bullet or shell. Every second after the Dark Assault was hit, only the afterimage of the Dark Assault would be shattered by the explosion of the bullets and artillery shells. Looking at the Dark Assault that was like a cat playing with a mouse, shuttling through the bullet screen like lightning and destroying the Xeons one by one, Song Yunxiu and Elijah suddenly felt that what they were worried about just now seemed to be a little laughable. Elijah moved the corner of his mouth and looked at Song Yunxiu. "Yunxiu, are we still going to attack?" Song Yunxiu's eyes that were hidden under his brown glasses seemed to fluctuate for a moment, but then returned to normal. "That's it. Let's go back." After a pause, Song Yunxiu continued. "If that's the case, we probably won't be detained by the people in the space station." In the bullet screen, the winged Radiant Bearer suddenly retracted. The Dark Assault's body sank and disappeared from the enemy's vision. By the time the Xeon and the Nazca-class high-speed warship reacted, it was already too late. The Dark Assault's muzzle was pointed at the Nazca-class high-speed warship's bridge, at almost zero distance. "General!" As the scorching light beam bloomed, the Nazca-class high-speed warship's bridge was penetrated on the spot. In the next second, the colorful light wings spread out again. However, below the unfolded light wings was the scene of a Nazca-class high-speed warship being engulfed in an explosion. The Dark Assault easily broke through the barrage formed by Xeon and the NASCAR-class high-speed battleship. The scene of the NASCAR-class high-speed battleships exploding with a single blow made everyone in the Troy space station gasp involuntarily. Some even subconsciously looked in Celine's direction. Dr. Celine's work is actually so terrifying? Isn't the Radiant Bearer a project designed for deep space development? Why is it so terrifying when used in battle? In an instant, these discussions gradually reached Celine's ears. A bitter smile appeared on Celine's lips. Sorry, Dr. Celine. I made the decision without permission. Of course, Lakis heard these discussions. No. Miss Audrey, you don't need to apologize. Perhaps this is inevitable. In today's world, no cutting-edge technology can escape the whirlpool of war. Rather than giving the Radiant Bearer to Earth Union or Zaft, I'd rather give it to you. Perhaps Celine had already expected some things, so after the bitter smile, Celine's gaze became firm. Is that so? Perhaps we are not the people you can entrust it to. This sentence Lakis did not say out loud. 1, 2, 3. The white cat's tail shook slightly. With great interest, it counted the achievements of the Dark Assault since the beginning of the battle. Kai. The Xeon on the left. Yes. It wants to run. Kill it. The white cat's sharp eyes immediately saw the Xeon that wanted to escape back to the remaining Nazca-class high-speed warship. Without hesitation, just a stream of light swept across the space that was gradually filled with the destruction of the Xeon and the Nazca-class high-speed warship. The Xeon that was trying to escape suddenly exploded. Oh, the 10th one. One more minute until the battery pack of the new toy runs out. The last Xeon, and the last Nazca-class high-speed warship. With a spread of light wings, the Dark Assault drew a spiral trajectory among the floating destruction and rushed towards the remaining Nazca-class high-speed warship at an extremely fast speed. As long as this warship was destroyed, then the remaining Xeon would not be able to make any waves. Perhaps the Dark Assault's performance before had scared everyone on this Nazca-class high-speed warship out of their wits. As soon as they saw the Dark Assault dragging an afterimage, the moment it approached at high speed, regardless of whether it was useful or not, all the weapons on this Nazca-class high-speed warship immediately fired at the Dark Assault. Two 120mm single high-energy converging fire cannons continuously roared. Two 66mm dual railguns fired continuously. 10 58mm automatic defense cannons even unleashed their potential, pulling out a barrage of bullets that blocked the surrounding airspace of the Nazca-class high-speed warship. As for the 450mm vertical firing system, due to its slow reloading speed, it could not combine with the other weapons in time to attack the Dark Assault. However, even if the 450mm vertical firing system could launch an attack in time, it was already too late. The extreme speed of the flying wing-type Radiant Bearer was enough to ignore the Nazca-class high-speed warship's final struggle. Just like before, it easily appeared in front of the remaining Nazca-class high-speed warship's bridge. The moment the Dark Assault's muzzle emitted light again, it was the moment the Xeon fell into despair. Boom! The light wings disappeared in an instant, and the last Nazca-class high-speed warship was also dragged into the underworld by the explosion. Having lost its last hope, the Xeon went crazy. In the last light of the Nazca-class high-speed warship, it charged towards the Dark Assault. In the end, the Dark Assault's beam sword only cut it in half. Oh, we won. The moment the Dark Assault killed the last enemy, the Troy space station erupted into cheers. Moreover, with the explosion of the Nazca-class high-speed warship, the interrupted communication began to recover. As soon as the communication was restored, the head of the Troy space station immediately sent an inquiry to Zaft and Plant. In the end, the stationmaster was shocked. Plant's highest council, and even the National Defense Committee, never gave Zaft the order to attack the Troy space station. This was the reply from Plant's highest council. At the same time, it also left the head of the station in a perplexing dilemma. However, at this moment, an unfamiliar spaceship suddenly appeared. Chapter 600. Matthias. A man hidden behind the shadows of the world. Perhaps, if it hadn't been for the shocking change back then, this man might have continued to follow the instructions of his deceased mother, wearing the robe that symbolized the leader of the clan, sitting on the seat that represented the dignity of the clan leader, and issuing orders that would determine the future of the clan to the people in the name of the clan. It seemed that there was no difference. However, the clan followed the ancient tradition to determine who would be the future leader. And this ancient tradition was a matriarchal social structure that had disappeared from modern human history. That's right. The tradition of the clan was to elect a qualified woman to become the leader of the clan. This was where the problem lay. Matthias was a man. But from the day he was born, his gender was concealed by his mother, the former clan leader, and he was declared to be her, a baby girl named Matthias. When she was pushed to the throne of the clan leader, the mother who concealed and tampered with the baby boy also passed away. At that time, only the maid who was personally appointed and trained by his mother knew the secret of the clan leader named Matthias. However, whether it was his mother or Matthias, who ascended to the position of matriarch with a female appearance under the name of Matthias, neither of them expected that this supposedly loyal maid would be the culprit who caused Matthias' mask to shatter. Rebellion. A rebellion was launched with the maid as the center. Matthias lost Matthias' mask on that day, and became a stray dog that fled in panic. From then on, he lived in fear. So, in a coincidental opportunity, he swore to take revenge. He wanted to take revenge on the enemy who raised the blade of rebellion against him. Sir. The 2 Nazca-class high-speed warships and the Xeon they carried have all been killed. In front of him was the scene of the battle that happened at the Troy space station. A dark attack. An MS manufactured based on the technology developed by the United Earth Federation could erupt with such terrifying combat power. Was this the strength of the pilot, or was it because of the pair of light wings? Matthias didn't know. However, under this powerful force, Matthias felt that the time for revenge might have come. Send an identification signal to the Troy space station. We want to meet the pilot of the MS. Matthias. The moment Ray Minkai heard this name, his eyes turned cold. Now that the librarian was the main culprit behind the creation of Lux's photocopies, Matthias, an important figure of the clan behind the librarian, actually appeared before him. Nice to meet you, Sir Kai Brittany. The Troy space station did not allow Matthias' spaceship to enter the space station. Instead, it took a compromise and allowed both parties to send an airship to conduct the meeting under the watchful eyes of both parties. Nice to meet you, Matthias. Compared to Matthias, who had shown a friendly attitude during their first meeting, Ray Minkai's attitude was much colder. However, Matthias did not mind at all, because he knew the reason behind this series of events. Perhaps I can understand Sir Guy's pain of being forced to leave his hometown. As an opening remark, Matthias did not hide the fact that he knew Ray Minkai's sore spot. Leave home? Matthias, I don't understand what you are talking about. Little did he know that Matthias' self-righteous behavior was a signal to Ray Minkai. Matthias in front of him did not seem to know of Lux Klein's existence. Instead, he thought of him as a heroic young man. Yes. After all, this world is not as perfect as it seems. If Matthias is here to perform, I'm afraid not many people here will be willing to watch your performance. Ray Minkai frowned and suddenly realized that the man in front of him, who was dressed neither like a man nor a woman, and whose face was even more feminine, did not seem to be as vicious as he imagined. Is it a deviation in his memory about the librarian? No. Sorry. This is just a spur of the moment. Sir Kai. When Matthias saw Ray Minkai was about to leave, he immediately changed his appearance. Under the feminine makeup was a serious and deep gaze. Sir Kai Brittany. You should know the name Ray Minkai, right? So what if I know? So what if I don't know? Although Ray Minkai did not admit it, Matthias already understood. Yes, Ray Minkai is a hero. In order to protect the Princess of Plant, he did not hesitate to sacrifice his life to protect Lux Klein. I admire him very much. However, the heroes in this world are not as perfect as imagined. Matthias' voice was powerful. Ray Minkai raised his eyebrows, but he was secretly glad that he did not let Lux come here with him. Yes, Ray Minkai is just a hero created by humans. Furthermore, he didn't sacrifice his life to protect Lux Clay as Plant and Zaft claimed. Having said that, Matthias glanced at Ray Minkai, but he found that Ray Minkai's expression was extremely calm, and his eyes were even more calm. Is that all? Matthias. At this point, Ray Minkai had already understood Matthias' intention. Is it nothing more than wanting to recruit me to join Matthias' team? Become a member of the Librarian? Or is it participate in the battle of revenge against the clan? The more Ray Minkai interacted with Matthias, the more memories of the Librarian and the clan behind the Librarian appeared in his mind. No, I don't have any other intentions. Matthias was interrupted, but he was not angry. Instead, he took the initiative to send 3 sets of information to Ray Minkai. This is about Ray Minkai's actions after the Silverwind incident. This is the information about the mastermind behind the Silverwind incident. Matthias' finger tapped heavily on the 3rd set of information. This is the culprit that caused everything to happen. Having said that, Matthias got up and prepared to leave. There is a way to contact us at the end of the information. I hope we will have the opportunity to witness the birth of a hero with our own eyes. The airship carrying Matthias slowly returned to the unfamiliar spaceship under Ray Minkai's gaze. However, the documents left behind by Matthias set off thousands of waves in Ray Minkai's heart. Ray Minkai did not open the information about his own movements, nor did he open the information about the mastermind behind the Silverwind incident. Instead, he opened the 3rd set of information. But as he opened this set of information, Ray Minkai saw a shocking secret that had never appeared in the settings of Gao Da's seed. At least half of the 12 members of the Plant's Supreme Council had been replaced by the Librarian's photocopies. Moreover, on the eve of these photocopies being replaced, all of them had been ordered to assist Patrick Sala, either openly or secretly. In other words, the current Plant's Supreme Council was not what outsiders thought it was, where Patrick Sala's faction was too strong, causing the Klein faction to have no choice but to compromise temporarily. Instead, the Plant's Supreme Council had long been dominated by the pro-war faction represented by Patrick Sala. Hey, Kai. Was that androgynous fellow lying to them? If Plant had been controlled by Patrick Sala, the situation would have been out of control by now. White Cat State Zero emerged from the shadows and stretched its little head to look at the information in Ray Minkai's hands. White Cat State Zero was shocked when it saw the information about Patrick Sala. Maybe it's fake, but maybe it's true. Don't forget about the existence of Miss E. Ray Minkai closed the information in his hands and returned to the cockpit of the airship. Maybe? I hope so. But didn't that arrogant guy with glasses also bring back a piece of information? White Cat State Zero jumped lightly and landed on the cockpit. Zhao? That's true. This unexpected meeting did surprise Ray Minkai. But after recovering the relevant memories, Ray Minkai became much calmer. Because the most terrifying thing was that the Librarian, Plant, and Zaft had fallen into the hands of Miss E. This was no big deal. In fact, it was the same. After the information in Song Yunwei's hands was given to Ray Minkai to compare the 2 pieces of information, the situation was indeed the worst. Miss E, who was hiding behind the scenes, had unknowingly completed the capture of Plant and Zaft. As long as she was willing, perhaps in the next second, the next moment, or even tomorrow, she could completely expand the war with Earth. Have the members of the Supreme Council been replaced by the photocopies? Just like me? After weighing the pros and cons, Ray Minkai still handed the information in his hands to Lakis. And the latter, after carefully flipping through the information, looked at Ray Minkai without sadness or joy. Kai, can you tell me everything you know? Ray Minkai moved the corner of his mouth, but did not know where to start. It seems that things are more serious than I thought. Am I right? Ray Minkai looked at Lakis's bitter smile and nodded silently. Yes, but now I'm not completely sure that things have developed to the worst point. Let's go, Kai. Suddenly, Lakis stood up and looked at Ray Minkai with a firm expression. Audrey, since you're not completely sure, then use your eyes to see everything you suspect, and then tell me the correct answer. Kai. In a flash, Ray Minkai realized the meaning of Lakis's words. Lakis, you mean to go back to Plant? No way. The Klein faction's power is not as weak as it seems. In fact, our family has also set up a hidden force in Plant. Ray Minkai's decisive rejection did not make Lakis back down. Instead, her will was unusually firm. My father once told me that if possible, he did not want to use them. If possible, Klein would even forget about them. But now, perhaps it's time. Lakis looked up and stared straight into Ray Minkai's eyes without any hesitation. Kai, returning to Plant isn't just about you. It's also about me. Kai, promise your little princess. At most, I'll protect her from the side. The white cat's words rang in his ears, and Ray Minkai had no choice but to agree. However, the situation would not improve. Another mission? Infiltrating Plant? Zhao, are you crazy? Lolita Yaja screamed and looked in disbelief at Song Yunqiao, who had accepted a new mission without saying a word. One had to know that the previous mission that risked his life did not even receive a return, and he immediately accepted another one. Moreover, it was issued by the same person. Zhao, can you tell me what's going on? Li De Weiler also expressed his opinion. The recycler, Paul Jewel, had already gone to Plant when we arrived. Moreover, the mission he accepted was to escort the son of Yuri Amifai, one of the 12 members of the Supreme Council, Nigger Amifai, back to his country. Song Yunqiao's words made his companions come to a realization. 12 members? That. Lolita Yaja was stunned for a moment, then helplessly covered her forehead and sighed. It seems that we can't cut ties with the Supreme Council in a short period of time. That's true. Li De Weiler clapped his hands and then winked at Song Yunqiao. Zhao's previous arrangement should be effective now. Effective? Who? Elijah was a little confused. Lolita Yaja helplessly rolled her eyes. It's that toy from Earth United. It's Swain. Not long ago, I sent him to Plant's April City. Using the mission as an excuse, I want him to stay there for at least half a month. Elijah was shocked by Song Yunqiao's words. At the same time, it also shocked Ray Minkai. Song Yunqiao. You actually let Earth United's tools stay in Plant's April City? Can't there be any accidents? No. Swain isn't as stubborn as those toys. Probably, the brainwashing he went through isn't too complete. Song Yunqiao's answer made Lei Minka frown, but he did not say anything in the end. Swain had already been handed over to Song Yunqiao, so it was up to him to make the arrangements. If you've made the arrangements on your side, then let's go. Ray Minkai looked at the time and realized that it was already very late. With the help of Serena and the others, Dark Assault had already transferred to the mothership of Giant Snake's Tail. Next, Ray Minkai and Lakis would enter Plant with the help of Giant Snake's Tail. This was the only feasible method at the moment. Sir Kai. Due to time constraints, we can only prepare 5 battery packs for the Winged Radiance Bearer. Please use them with caution. Serena did not know too much about the details, but when she saw Lakis's serious expression, she knew that what was about to happen would not be good. Okay, got it. Ray Minkai nodded, and Lakis, who was standing beside him, looked around and said softly, "Let's go. Back to plant." Chapter 601. On the clean and quiet street, a figure with sunglasses and red hair was walking quickly through the street and came to the door of a house with white walls. Click! The figure quickly scanned the surroundings. After confirming that no one was following him, he opened the door and returned to the room they called the safe house. "You're back. How's today's harvest?" Inside the house, a young man who was fiddling with a confusing device raised his head and glanced at the figure before casually greeting him. "Well, it's still the same. The security of the research institute is much stricter than I remember." The sunglasses were taken off, and the red hair faded, and a handsome face appeared in front of others. He was Nickel Amify, who had returned to the capital of Plant, April City, with the help of Law and everyone in the recycling house not long ago. However, Nickel, who used disguise and other means to hide his identity, went to the research lab where his father, Yuri Amify, was located. He found that at the intersection 100 meters away from the research institute, there was already a group of Zaft soldiers interrogating vehicles and pedestrians coming and going. This discovery made Nickel's attempt to sneak into the research lab and face his father, Yuri Amify, directly fail. In the following days, many attempts to enter the research institute in different ways still failed. Nigal could not help but feel depressed. Law. What about the professor? The teenager who was sitting on the floor fiddling with an unknown device waved his hand casually. Professor? They seem to have gone out. They will be back later. You don't have to worry. At this moment, Little Hatchie, the AI placed next to Law, said a message. Nickel, according to the analysis of the news announced by the Plant Supreme Council during this period, there are some anomalies in the decision of the Supreme Council. Little Hatchie's words made Nickel confused, and when he looked at Little Hatchie's master, Law, the latter was also inexplicable. Nickel, don't look at me. I only know how to fiddle with these machines. I don't understand Little Hatchie's inexplicable speech from time to time. Law spread out his greasy hands, showing a helpless expression. This made Nigal smile bitterly. During the time he was back in April City, he had seen how strange this ragtag army was compared to the army. Oh, right. Before the professor left, she seemed to have left you a message. Law seemed to have suddenly remembered something and pointed to the table not far away. There, a CD lay quietly on the table. Nikor, who was confused, picked up the CD and went back to his room. When he was ready to see what was in it, he saw a note under the CD. This is... The weather in April City was still as mild as he remembered. As Lakis sat in the elevator that descended from the port to the city, she couldn't help but feel nostalgic as she looked at the lush green city below. Especially after everything she had experienced, people, things, and even the cold and hot climate on Earth, when she faced the unchanging warmth of April City, an indescribable sense of loss lingered in her heart. Audrey! Ray Minkai's voice came from behind. Lakis looked back and found that the people around her were talking about the silver mask Ray Minkai was wearing at the moment. From those whispers, it was not difficult for Lakis to hear that the people around her seemed to regard Ray Minkai's wearing of a mask as some kind of idol worship. And this so-called idol might be the man most valued by the current chairman of the National Defense Force, who would also be the new chairman of the Plant Supreme Council, Patrick Sala Lau Lu Kreutzer. Everyone thinks you're a fan of Captain Kreutzer. Lakis retracted her gaze and looked at Ray Minkai with a smile. Maybe. As long as I wear a mask, this is inevitable. Ray Minkai, on the other hand, was quite open-minded. After all, Ray Minkai couldn't use the holographic image necklace to disguise himself like Lakis, so he could only use a mask to cover his face. Fortunately, with the influence of Patrick Sala sweeping through Plant, Ray Minkai quickly gained a good reputation in Zaft and even among the people of Plant. The masked Ray Minkai was not treated as a weirdo. Even when passing through the port security check, the surrounding Zaft soldiers gave Ray Minkai a knowing look of encouragement. This situation made Ray Minkai dumbfounded. After the small teasing between the two, Lakis' expression became a little lonely. Kai, tell me, is it really okay for everyone to stay here? The scorching desert, the high and cold snowy mountains, the vast sky, and the cold and mysterious extreme north brought an impact to Lakis that she had yet to fully digest. After seeing how vast the outside world was, after Lakis returned to April City and Plant, she suddenly had a feeling that the colonial satellite, which was regarded as the home of the adjusters, might be a cage. Now, there's nothing bad about it. Ray Minkai knew what Lakis was thinking at the moment, but according to the situation in the outside world, the situation of the adjusters gathering together for warmth was already the trend. Is there nothing bad about it? Lakis lowered her gaze and shook her head silently. Perhaps gathering together for warmth was the only feasible way now. But what next? 1 year, 2 years, or even 5 years? What about 10 years later? Solidifying one's footsteps and vision in these colonial satellites, using the thoughts of the victims to limit one's identity to gain sympathy from the outside world, Lakis' gaze couldn't help but dim. If that was the case, the citizens who fixed themselves in these colonial satellites would probably become the victims of some people. Ding dong! The orbital elevator reached its destination. When the cool breeze of April City gently caressed Lakis' hair again, it also pulled her thoughts back to reality. Let's go, Audrey. Zhao and the others are still waiting for us. Half an hour later, Ray Minkai and Lakis walked along the main road and arrived in front of a small house. On the lawn in front of the house, an old man was sitting leisurely on a rattan chair, ignoring Ray Minkai and Lakis who were standing in front of him. This old man, may I ask if Tsong Yunxiao and the others live here? When Lei Minkai saw the old man's posture, some images that were buried deep in his memory quietly came to mind. As expected, no matter how Ray Minkai asked, the old man still didn't respond and continued to sit leisurely on the rattan chair, rocking back and forth. Kai, let me try. Lakis volunteered but was stopped by Ray Minkai. No. There's no need. Lakis, that guy Zhao is coming out. As soon as Ray Minkai finished speaking, the door of the house was knocked open from the inside out. Bang! As the door was slammed open, a figure rolled to the ground. This scene made Ray Minkai and Lakis look at each other. The figure who rolled to the ground was the young man Ray Minkai and Lakis had only met once, Swain Carl Bayan. The young man who had almost died at the hands of Ray Minkai had rolled out of the house and landed on the ground in a sorry state. Swain, before you figure it out, stay outside. While they were puzzled, Tsong Yunxiao's voice came from the house. Tsong Yunxiao, what happened? Upon hearing Tsong Yunxiao's voice, Ray Minkai asked loudly. This voice? Is it Kai? It's me. What happened? With Tsong Yunxiao here, everything was easy. Lei Minkai no longer paid any attention to the almost transparent old man. He walked past Sherwon, who was struggling to get up, to the door of the small house, and asked Tsong Yunxiao, who was walking out of the house. It's just a small matter. Tsong Yunxiao said subconsciously, then corrected himself. Swain hasn't left this house in the past half a month since he came here. He hasn't left this house in half a month. Ray Minkai and Lakis were surprised. Swain Carl Bayan wasn't the kind of person who could stay at home, right? Yes, if not for old Bart, this guy would have starved to death. Tsong Yunxiao was exasperated. However, Swain, who stood up again, patted the dust off his body expressionlessly and stood there without retorting or speaking. Even Ray Minkai felt a headache when he saw Swain's stubborn appearance, let alone Tsong Yunxiao. Yunxiao, let this young man stay here. Let me have something to do. At this moment, the old man who hadn't responded to Ray Minkai's question suddenly spoke. It seemed like he wanted to plead on Swain's behalf. The corners of Song Yunxiao's eyes twitched a few times, but he still nodded silently and agreed to the old man's request. Thank you. I'll let this young man stay in the house. He won't disturb you. The old man seemed to have sensed something. After making a solemn promise, he slowly stood up from the rattan chair and walked to Swain's side. He pulled Swain away and turned to walk into the house next door. After watching the old man and young man leave, Song Yunxiao slowly heaved a sigh of relief. I didn't expect the famous leader of Giant Serpent's Tail to be like this. Swain Carlbion's fate might have changed at this moment. It's just a moment of melancholy. All right. Kai, Miss Audrey. We've already obtained the information you wanted. Please come in and talk. Half an hour later, Ray Minkai and Lakis, who were sitting on the sofa, were called in by Lolita Yizha. Their attention was attracted by a document. The first thing they saw when they opened the document was a photo. It was a photo that caused Ray Minkai and Lakis' expressions to change drastically. In the photo was the gentle pink princess and a young man with bandages on his head. His face was pale, but Ray Minkai and Lakis were extremely familiar with him. This is Kira? In an instant, Ray Minkai and Lakis recognized the young man's true identity. However, compared to Lakis' shock, Ray Minkai's attention was on something else. This photo, is it safe? Yes. The pink princess in the photo was undoubtedly an imposter, but the person who took this photo was probably not an ordinary person, right? Lolita Yizha glanced at Song Yunxiao, and after obtaining his approval, she spoke the truth. The source of this photo was a servant working in the Klein faction's official residence. However, when we obtained this photo, we didn't interact with the servant. Instead, we obtained it from a secret base that we had agreed on a few years ago, but wasn't very stable. Servant? What about the servant? Lakis hurriedly asked. Lolita Yizha shook her head. I'm not sure. However, we didn't receive any response from the other party after that. Perhaps, has she been discovered? Seeing Lolita Yizha's expression, Ray Minkai could guess what happened to the servant. If they were not missing, then they had already been murdered. How can that be? I don't even know who that servant is. Lakis's gaze wavered slightly as she looked at the smiling face in the photo. That was her face, but she was unknowingly maintaining an intimate relationship with the young man named Kira Yamato, who was also Aslan Sarah's good friend. We don't know who that servant is. However, what we do know is that the Klein faction's little princess seems to have betrayed the engagement she had made since she was young. What? Lakis raised her head abruptly and stared straight at Lolita Yizha. Cough. From our observations over the past few days, we found out that ever since the young man in the photo was sent to the Klein family, the little princess hasn't appeared in public apart from necessary official activities. Lolita Yizha's narration caused Lakis's heart to gradually sink to the bottom. Behind the actions of the impostor who pretended to be her, the leader of the Klein faction, which was her father, Siegel Klein, had probably been controlled by the other party. The more Lakis thought about it, the more terrified she felt. She couldn't help but feel her hands and feet turn cold. Just as the piercing coldness engulfed Lakis's entire body, a wave of warmth quietly covered her hands. Don't worry. Everything will be fine. Ray Minkai's voice rang softly in Lakis's ears, calming her gradually panicking heart that was worried about her father's situation. Kai. Ray Minkai shook his head slightly and said with certainty, I will make arrangements. After saying that, Ray Minkai looked at Song Yunxiang. Yunxiang, I wonder if you can contact Luo and the rest? Song Yunxiang's gaze shifted from the young man in the photo to Ray Minkai and nodded with certainty. Yes. Chapter 602. Ripples would appear on the calm surface of the lake from time to time, shattering the tranquil atmosphere again and again. It added a hint of vitality to the tranquil scene that was like a famous painting. There were several people sitting on the benches by the lake. They weren't sitting side by side, but were sitting on the front and back of the bench. From afar, these people didn't seem to have much to do with each other. They just happened to be sitting on the same bench. This place has changed. On the side of the bench facing the lake, a young man wearing a cap and a pair of wide sunglasses let out a soft sigh. People couldn't help but think that this girl might have returned to her hometown that she had left for a long time to sigh. Yes, this place has changed. It has become unrecognizable. Don't you think so? Okay. The bench's back was facing the lake, and on the side facing the forest, there was a man and woman leaning against each other. In the man's arms, the girl with long black hair also let out a similar sigh. Yes, this place might not be the April city that we know. The man sighed. But this is our hometown. The young man seemed to be responding to the man's words and sighed softly. But the people here are no longer the people we are familiar with. A document was quietly passed from under the bench to the young man's hand. The moment the breeze blew across the lake, the young man's eyes hidden behind the sunglasses were already filled with shock. Is it the imprint? As the lake rippled and the fallen leaves rolled up, the document in the young man's hand was closed. If that's the case, everything makes sense. The people we are familiar with are no longer the people we are familiar with. It's just that they have changed into familiar faces. The document was passed back to the man from under the bench. Then, what do you think we should do? Leave this place? The man looked at the document in his hand and sighed softly. No. I want to save the people I am familiar with. Even though you don't know their current situation? The girl raised her head from the man's arms and looked at the rippling lake. Not knowing means that there is still a glimmer of hope, right? Moreover, isn't your father's condition unclear as well? The youth slowly raised his head and looked at the curvature of the land in the distance. In this colonial satellite, as long as he found the right angle and knew the direction, he might be able to use a telescope to see the place he wanted to see. And the place where the young man's gaze landed just happened to be the girl's home. The house named Klein. Hearing this, the girl's eyes flashed with a hint of struggle. Truth be told, one of the reasons she risked being discovered and returned to April City was to find out if her father was still alive. Do you have a plan? The man gently held the girl's small hand and asked softly. Yes. However, I need some time and your help. Me. The young man's words stunned the man. The young man chuckled. Of course. Only if the knight who guards the princess personally takes action will the plan have a chance of success. The man lowered his gaze and looked at the girl. In just a short moment, the man opened his mouth and replied, Good. I need to know everything about the plan. Of course. After all, this is a choice that will determine the future. The Klein family. Sienna didn't know how long he had been under house arrest. Since his daughter, Lakis, recovered, he had been secretly under house arrest in this house for a period of time. During this period of time, unbeknownst to him, the servants he was familiar with and the Klein family he was familiar with had become a completely unfamiliar scene. Even though his treatment as the head of the Klein family had never decreased by a single bit. Lakis, are you still alive? Across the windowsill, Sienna clearly saw the pink girl chatting with the unfamiliar girl in the glass house. That face, that figure. It was clearly his precious daughter, Lakis Klein. But Sienna knew that it was just a fake Lakis Klein. What? Father, are you interested in watching the performance of dolls today? At this time, a familiar but slightly different voice sounded. Upon hearing the voice, Sienna returned to her seat and didn't say another word. She didn't bother with the person who came, either, as though nothing could get through to her. But the person wasn't angry. Instead, he excitedly handed a document to Sienna. Father, this is a proposal recently passed by the Supreme Council. The document was flipped open. A name marked with thick black ink deeply stung Sienna's eyes. Spitbreak Battle Plan. This was the battle plan that the Klein faction led by Sienna Klein had always opposed. In Sienna's view, this battle plan was undoubtedly a ticking time bomb that pushed the entire war into an irreversible abyss. Therefore, when Sienna was the head of the Supreme Council, this battle plan had always been suppressed under the table. Is Patrick crazy? This will destroy the entire world. Sienna's reaction was obviously within the person's expectations. Her pink hair fluttered gently, and her beautiful face was brimming with a confident smile. No, Father. This is just the prelude to our king. This world won't be destroyed. It will just welcome a new master. New master? Sienna's eyes widened in anger. She suddenly got up, pulled open the curtains, and pointed at the glass house below. Him? Sienna's anger stunned the pink figure, who was Mia, for a moment. But then, she laughed out loud. Father, you're really good at joking. Him? He's just called the person who emphasizes the most. Apart from that, what's the difference between him and a mortal? In my heart, Aslan Sala is more qualified to have the title of the strongest. At this moment, the smile on Mia's face became even more charming. Yes. Aslan Sara was more qualified than anyone else, even more so than the so-called strongest regulator below. He deserved the title of the strongest more than anyone else. Only then will he become the king of this world. You're crazy. This was the first time Sienna learned from Mia that she was under house arrest here and seemed to have taken control of the Supreme Council. Crazy? Father. In the past, when I was just an ordinary girl, I did admire Lux Klein and thought that Lux Klein's ideals were the truth that could save the world. But when I woke up from the darkness, I realized that this world isn't as gentle as Lux Klein said. It's much bigger, more terrifying, and more cruel. Mia smiled softly, but said something that Sienna couldn't understand. But Mia didn't care whether Sienna could understand or not. After saying something, she slowly retreated and returned to the door. Today's greetings end here. Father, please wait for a moment. After all, our king still needs some time. The next moment the door closed. Sir. There's news from Yuri Amify. Freedom and Justice have gone offline. They can start the pre-service test at any time. An expressionless man stood by the aisle and bowed to Mia. Yes. Let's begin. Then, guide the Supreme Council to transfer Aslan Sala back. Yes. The roaring sound of machinery. Nervous and focused expressions. Loading trucks that moved along a fixed and long transportation track. And the parts that were slowly pulled from the ground into the air by the suspension cables. The armor was following the guidance of the program, moving in an orderly manner to gather all the parts and armor and create the final destination of the designer's dream. Senator Amify. The preparations are complete. Let's get ready to start the test. Yuri Amify rubbed his eyes, trying to soothe the intense work that had been going on for days. Although it made him very tired, but in this high-intensity work, he didn't have much time to think about the sadness of losing his own son. Yes, but according to the Supreme Council's request, it seems that we have to wait until Aslan Sala returns before we can start the test of the Gauda of Justice. Aslan Sala? It didn't matter if his subordinate didn't mention it, but when Aslan Sala's name was mentioned, Yuri Amify immediately thought of his own son, Neil Amify. Whenever they met, Neil Amify would always mention Aslan Sala's name. There was no doubt that to Neil Amify, Aslan Sala was his best friend. As a father, Yuri Amify was very satisfied with this. But now, Aslan Sala's name was the switch that triggered the grief in Yuri Amify's heart. Your Excellency? Knowing that he had said something wrong, the subordinate hurriedly opened his mouth and tried to correct his mistake, but was stopped by Yuri Amify. Okay. You guys are tired. Go and rest. The test of the Gauda of Justice will start tomorrow. Yes. Then please have a good rest. His subordinates looked at each other for a while before they left with hesitant expressions. Yuri Amify naturally knew what his subordinates were thinking, but he didn't want to care about these things now. At this moment, a series of footsteps quietly came from behind. Yuri Amify didn't think much and said without turning his head, "Leave this to me. Go back and rest." However, the person behind him didn't respond to Yuri Amify's words. Instead, he took a few steps forward and stood shoulder to shoulder with Yuri Amify. He raised his head and looked at the pitch-black body that was illuminated by many lights. "Yes, this is the Gouda of Justice? As expected of my masterpiece. Perhaps only such a body can avenge my son." "You?" A familiar voice. A familiar tone. Also, when he turned around and looked back in that instant, he saw that face. Yuri Amify was stunned. That face was clearly his own face. "What? Are you stunned when you see your face?" Yuri Amify. The newcomer took a step forward so that Yuri Amify could see him clearly. "You, who the hell are you?" "Guard. Guard." After Yuri Amify was stunned, he quickly pressed the warning button and tried to call the guard to catch the person who had the same face as him. "Don't waste your energy. There's only one of my people here. Yuri Amify." The person smiled gently, but showed a different crazy aura from Yuri Amify. "You. Who the hell are you? Why are you exactly the same as me?" Yuri Amify was one of the members of the Supreme Council after all, so he quickly regained his composure. "Who am I? I am you. Alas. Nigger's departure is my sorrow, and it's also a sorrow that I still can't forget. However, the strength of this sorrow is not enough to comfort the resentful spirit of Nigger's tragic death. So I'm here. To replace you, an incompetent father." The person stepped forward and bypassed Yuri Amify. After casually operating the console a few times, he expressed satisfaction with the many parameters that appeared on the screen. "As expected of me, the initial parameters of the anti-neutron disruptor are set perfectly. Don't worry, I'll finish the rest of the work." Before Yuri Amify could say anything to stop the person, he fell to the ground under a sudden stab of pain. Moreover, before he completely fell into darkness, he heard the person say this. "Yuri Amify. Your life, your hatred, and your name, let me inherit it. You just have a good sleep." Yuri Amify, who was unconscious, was carried away on a stretcher by two strong men. The person who came put on the white coat that was taken from Yuri Amify and stood in front of the console. Following the original plan, he began to adjust the parameters of the pitch-black MS in front of him. "Everything will become our salute to our king." With the input of the line of parameters, a murmur quietly sounded like worshipping a god. The brilliance of the artificial sun gradually dimmed. Now, it happened to be the night of the April City. A car drove along the main road into a fork in the road where there were few cars. After leaving the highway, it slowly drove into a parking lot where there weren't many cars. The door opened. A young man wearing a red shirt representing the elite status of Zaft stepped out of the car first, then went around the back of the car, opened the door on the other side, and extended his right hand into the car. The moment the white and flawless hand was placed on the hand of the young man in red, a beautiful girl wearing a purple gauze bottom and a white pleated skirt also stepped out of the car. The moment the man and woman stepped out of the car, a man wearing a green military uniform commonly seen in Zaft walked out of the room on the side. He stepped forward and saluted the two. "Sorry for the wait. Time is tight now. Please follow my footstep." Hearing this, the man and woman looked at each other and nodded in unison. "Okay. Please lead the way." You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.